Hello, and thank you for allowing this moment for yourself. You can let go of all focus now. Just allow your attention to soften, as my voice gently carries you to a place of rest, a place where we find ourselves in a world that was anything but restful. We're going to explore a story of immense contrast, the harsh reality that hid behind a painted smile, the filth that was scrubbed raw with vinegar in a desperate attempt to seem clean. We're going to feel, just for a little while, the story of a day in a life that history often prefers to forget. Before we drift too far, if you feel a connection to this place, you're welcome to leave a quiet like or subscribe. Think of it not as a task, but as leaving a soft footprint in the sand before you continue your journey inward. And if you wish, you can leave a comment below, letting me know what city or town you're listening from, and what time it is for you there. It's always a quiet joy to know where these stories land. Alright, let the shadows in your room grow long and soft. Maybe you can hear the faint sound of your own breathing, and together, let's allow the story to begin. Because for you, in this story, the morning doesn't start with light. It starts with an itch. It begins as a faint tickle behind your ear, a familiar ghost. You don't even need to be fully awake to recognize it. Your body knows this alarm clock better than the rooster crowing from some distant, cleaner yard. You try to ignore it, to burrow deeper into the thin, scratchy wool blanket that smells faintly of damp, of stale sweat, and of the other women who used it before you. But the itch persists, multiplying. It's on your scalp now, a tiny, determined clawing. Another one starts its journey down the nape of your neck. With a sigh that is more air than sound, you give in. Your fingernails, permanently rimmed with grime, find the spot on your scalp and scratch. It's a moment of sharp, unsatisfying relief. You know it's a pointless battle. For every one you might dislodge, 100 more are holding a family reunion in the straw beneath your head. Your eyes finally peel open, sticky with sleep. The room is a study in shades of grey. A single small window, covered by a crude wooden shutter, allows only the faintest suggestion of dawn to seep through its cracks. The air is thick and heavy, a cocktail of unwashed bodies, chamber pots, and the damp, slightly sweet smell of decaying straw. This is your home, or rather, your designated corner of the floor. You push yourself up on one elbow, the straw crackling and rustling beneath you. This isn't a mattress in any modern sense of the word. It's a pile, a lumpy, compressed heap of straw stuffed into a coarse sack with ticking. In some places, it's packed down into hard, unforgiving lumps from months of use. In others, sharks talk through the fabric, pricking you in the night. You've heard whispers that in some grand houses, they change the straw twice a year. You'll be lucky if it's changed after the autumn harvest, and only then if the abbess, the woman who owns this house, and by extension you feels a rare pang of not generosity, but perhaps olfactory fatigue. A rustle comes from the other side of the room. It's Elodie, coughing a low, wet cough that has been her companion for weeks. Across from her, Marie is still lost to the world, one arm flung over her face. There are 5 of you in this one room, each with your own little island of straw. Privacy is a currency you can't even dream of affording. The itch returns, this time on your arm. You look down and see a tiny black speck moving slowly through the fine hairs on your forearm. Tailaus, your roommate. And it's brought its friends. Fleas, too, thrive in this environment. They are a constant, maddening presence, a living blanket of filth that you can never ever wash off. Historians and archaeologists can tell us all about the straw, the lack of sanitation, the diet from analyzing waste pits. But what they still debate is the quiet, internal toll of it all. How does a mind cope with the simple fact that you are never, ever truly alone, that you are a walking ecosystem for creatures that bite and crawl? Is it torment you eventually learn to ignore, like the rumble of carts outside? Or is it a constant, low-grade madness, 1,000 tiny paper cuts on your soul each and every day? You suspect it's the latter. You sit up fully now, swinging your legs off the straw pile. The floorboards are rough and cold against the soles of your feet. You pull the shared blanket tighter around your shoulders. It's not for warmth, not really. It's for a sliver of dignity in a room where there is none. You own nothing here. Not the straw, not the blanket, not even the thin, shapeless chemise you sleep in. It all belongs to the house. You are just another asset, like the rickety chairs downstairs or the watered-down wine in the cellar. The first real light of day traces a dusty line on the floor. It illuminates the grime on the waffle and daub walls, the cobwebs that hang like macabre chandeliers from the ceiling beams. It's the start of another day. The same as yesterday, and the one before that. A cycle of itches, aches, and forced smiles. You take a slow breath, the stale air filling your lungs. From downstairs, you hear the first heavy, deliberate footsteps of the abyss. The house is waking up, and your day is about to begin. The heavy footsteps on the stairs cease. A moment of silence hangs in the air, thick with anticipation. Then the sound of a wooden latch being drawn, and your bedroom door scrapes open. You and the other women now staring from your straw nests fall quiet. The abyss doesn't enter. She doesn't need to. Her presence fills the doorway, a solid, imposing shadow against the graying light from the hallway. You keep your eyes downcast, fixed on a particularly dark knot in the floorboards. You know the routine. Her gaze is sweeping across the room, a farmer inspecting her livestock. You feel it pass over you, a cold, calculating assessment. Is your face too pale? Are there any new marks or blemishes that might displease a customer? Are you moving too slowly, showing signs of sickness or insolence? Her silence is a weapon, forcing you to imagine the worst of her judgments. Satisfied, or at least not sufficiently displeased to intervene yet, she moves on to the next room. The ritual is complete. You are all accounted for. The day's labor can now officially commence. You rise, your joints protesting with a series of small clicks and groans. Sleep offers little respite on a bed of straw. You join the slow, silent procession of women shuffling out of the room and down the narrow, creaking staircase. The air grows cooler as you descend, and the smell changes. The cloying scent of unwashed bodies upstairs gives way to the sharper, sour smell of spilled ale and old cooking grease from the common room below. Your destination is the small, grimy yard behind the house. In the center of the muddy, trampled earth stands your morning salon, a large wooden basin perched on a rickety stand. This is the sum total of the house's washing facilities. The water in it is well, it's wet. That's the kindest thing you can say about it. It was likely drawn from the public well in the town square late last night, and it's been sitting out ever since. A thin film of dust and a few stray bits of straw float on the surface. It is profoundly cold, the kind of cold that makes your teeth ache just looking at it. There is no soap. Soap is a luxury, something for the wives of wealthy merchants. For you, there is only the water. One of the older girls, Agnes, is already there, scooping up handfuls of the frigid liquid and splashing it on her face. She gasps as the cold hits her skin. You wait your turn, shivering slightly in your thin chemise. There's a quiet, unspoken etiquette here. No one lingers. You get in, you get out. The water has to last for all 15 women in the house, for both morning and evening ablutions. By tonight, it will be a murky, grey soup. When it's your turn, you hesitate for a second, then plunge your hands in. The cold is a physical blow. You cup the water and bring it to your face, scrubbing quickly at your eyes and mouth. The water tastes of earth and metal. It doesn't feel cleansing. It feels more like you're just rearranging the dirt. You use the wetness on your hands to wipe down your arms and neck, a futile gesture against the deep, settled grime that days and weeks of this life have embedded in your skin. This is the great, unspoken joke of your profession. You are expected to be clean for the men who visit. They demand it, complain about it, hold it against you. Yet you are provided with absolutely nothing to achieve it. It is a performance of cleanliness, a pantomime you are forced to enact with dirty water and a threadbare rag if you're lucky. Some historians argue that the very concept of hygiene as we know it didn't exist for the common person in the Middle Ages. It was more about managing smells than eliminating germs, which they didn't understand anyway. But you don't need to understand germ theory to feel the profound wrongness of it all. The sting of a rash, the discomfort of chafed skin, the simple, soul-crushing feeling of being perpetually dirty. As you dry your face on the sleeve of your chemise, there are no towels. Of course you notice something else floating in the basin. A small, wriggling lava. Someone must have used the water to rinse a chamber pot instead of taking it to the ditch behind the house. A small, silent wave of revulsion passes through you. You say nothing. To complain would be to invite the abyss's wrath for being difficult. Besides, what would be the point? The water is already spoiled. It was spoiled the moment it was drawn. There's a strange, almost absurd little bit of knowledge that floats around among the women in houses like these, a piece of folklore almost. It's said that using stale urine to wash your face can make your skin paler and smoother. Some women swear by it. Historians have confirmed that urine, with its ammonia content, was indeed a common cleaning agent for everything from laundry to leather tanning. Whether anyone actually put it on their face is one of those questions that polite history tends to gloss over. The thought of it makes your stomach turn. You'd rather have the grime. You'd rather have the cold, lava-infested water. You step away from the basin, making room for the next woman in line. Your face is dripping and numb with cold. You are, by the standards of your world, clean. Ready for the day. You feel a familiar, hollow ache in your chest. It's not just the cold, or the dirt, or the hunger that's already beginning to gnaw at your stomach. It's the deep, weary resignation of knowing that this pathetic, inadequate ritual is the very best you can hope for. This murky basin is the peak of your daily luxury. The day only goes downhill. Back inside, the main common room is slowly coming to life. The air is still hazy with smoke from last night's fire, which now smoulders as a pile of grey ash in the large, soot-blackened hearth. The room is sparse, functional, and devoid of any real comfort. A long, rough-hewn trestle table is flanked by two benches, their surfaces polished smooth in patches by countless bodies and stained dark in others by spilled drinks and greasy food. This is where you'll wait, where you'll eat, and where the business of the evening will unfold. You take a seat on the bench, pulling your knees up to your chest to conserve what little warmth your body has. The other women are filtering in, their faces grim and puffy from sleep, their movements slow and lethargic. There is no cheerful morning chatter, no shared smiles. There is only a heavy, shared silence, a collective bracing for the day ahead. Then you hear her footsteps again. This time they are purposeful, crossing the stone floor from her private quarters at the back of the house. The abbess enters the common room. Her name is Methold, though no one dares use it. She is always the abbess, a title that is both a mockery and a statement of fact. She rules this house with the iron will and financial acumen of any head of a monastery. She is a woman in her late 40s, stout and formidable. Her dress is of a finer wool than yours, a deep, practical brown, and her hair is completely covered by a crisp, clean linen coif. It's the only truly clean thing in the entire house. She carries no staff, no symbol of her authority. She doesn't need one. Her authority is in her eyes. They are small, dark, and miss nothing. As she stands at the head of the room, her gaze sweeps over you all, and the silence deepens. This is the morning inspection part 2. The first one in the dormitory was about inventory. This one is about discipline. Elodie, she says, her voice not loud, but carrying a sharp edge that cuts through the smoky air. Elodie, the girl with the cough, flinches. Yes, boss. She rasps, her voice hoarse. Your cough is worse. Keep your distance from the patrons tonight. I'll not have you scaring off a sailor with deep pockets, because you sound like a dying goat. Serve the ale, and keep your mouth shut. Yes, boss. Matthias' eyes move on, landing on a younger girl, Isabel, who is new to the house, barely 16. Isabel, you worked clumsy last night. Spilled a whole jack of ale. That comes out of your earnings. But he pushed me. Isabel starts to protest, her voice trembling. I don't care if the king himself pushed you, the abbess snaps, her voice dropping to a low, dangerous growl. You spilled it. You pay for it. Are we clear? Isabel shrinks back, tears welling in her eyes. Yes, boss. She nods, looking down at her hand. This is a daily ritual of power and control. Brothel keepers, or abbesses as they were sometimes sardonically called, were often women themselves, sometimes from prostitutes who had managed to claw their way up. They were businesswomen in a brutal trade. They had to manage their flock, pay protection money to the town guards, deal with violent customers, and turn a profit. Some historians paint them as purely villainous figures exploiting the women under their charge. Others, a bit more charitably, argue they were themselves trapped in a patriarchal system, doing what they had to do to survive, providing a twisted sort of protection and structure for the women they employed. The truth, as is often the case, uncomfortable grey. Mathilde is not just your keeper. She is your creditor, your landlord, your employer, and your judge. Her gaze finally falls on you. You tense, running through a mental checklist of your own recent transgressions. Were you too slow bringing a drink last night? Did a customer complain? You, she says, pointing a thick finger in your direction. Your hem is torn again. I saw it yesterday. Did you mend it? You swallow, your throat suddenly dry. I did not have a needle, Abbess. You did not ask for a needle, she corrects you sharply. Do you think they fall from the sky? You will look like a beggar. A torn dress suggests you are not being cared for, which suggests I am not running my house properly. It is bad for business. You will fix it today. Yes, Abbess. Good. She gives one last, sweeping look around the room. The baker's boy will be here with the bread soon. Do not let me catch any of you stealing an extra piece. I count every loaf. With that final, chilling pronouncement, she turns and retreats to her office, a small room behind the common area where she keeps her ledger and her lockbox. The tension in the room eases, but only slightly. It's like a taut rope that has been loosened by a single turn, still humming with residual strain. Elodie lets out a shuddering, suppressed cough into her sleeve. Isabel is silently wiping tears from her cheeks with the back of her hand. You look down at the hem of your thin, worn dress. There is indeed a small, three-cornered tear near the bottom, a casualty of a snag on a splintered bench last night, mending it. Another task for which you have no tools. You will have to beg for a needle and thread from Mathilde later, a small act of supplication that reinforces her power over you. Everything, every tiny little thing from a sip of water to a piece of thread is a transaction. Nothing is given free. It is a world stripped bare of all kindness, run on the cold, hard logic of the ledger book in the abbess's back room. The sound you've all been waiting for finally arrives. Not a knock, but a familiar scraping sound at the back door, followed by a boy's high-pitched shout of bread. One of the older women, Marguerite, who has a slightly more trusted status, gets up to unbar the door. A skinny boy with a flour-dusted face and perpetually runny nose stands there, holding a large, flat basket. The smell that wafts in is, for a moment, divine. It's the smell of fresh baking, a scent that speaks of warmth, of hearths, of a world outside these walls. But the illusion shatters as soon as you see the contents of the basket. This isn't the fine, white man-chet bread that the wealthy eat. It's not even the decent dry bread of a respectable artisan. This is horse bread or something very close to it. It's a coarse, dark, heavy loaf made from a mix of barley, oats, and more often than not, things like ground-up beans, peas, and even leftover chaff. It's dense, it's tough, and it's what you'll get. The abbess emerges from her office, her timing impeccable. She oversees the transaction, counting the loaves as Marguerite transfers them from the boy's basket to a wooden chest in the corner of the room. She hands the boy a single, small coin, and ATS gone, the door barred once more against the outside world. Mathilde unlocks the chest and begins the distribution. She breaks one of the flat, round loaves in half, and then in half again, her strong hands making quick work of the tough crust. You watch her every move. This is the most important moment of your morning. She calls you up one by one. Marie. Elodie, you. When your turn comes, you step forward, hands held out. She drops a single, dense wedge of the bread into your palms. It's heavy, and still faintly warm. You murmur, "Thank you, Abbess," and retreat back to your spot on the bench. You hold the bread in your lap, studying it. The crust is thick and hard, the inside a dense, greyish-brown crumb. You can see whole bits of oat and what looks like a piece of pea husk embedded in it. This is your breakfast, and likely your lunch as well. Next comes the ale. Mathilde ladles it out from a large wooden barrel in the corner. It's small beer, the weakest, cheapest sort of ale. It's thin, watery, and has a low enough alcohol content that you can drink it throughout the day without becoming truly intoxicated. In a world where water is often unsafe to drink, this weak ale is the standard beverage for almost everyone, from children to farmhands. It provides calories, hydration, and a small degree of safety from waterborne illness. As the brewing process kills most pathogens, you're handed a wooden cup filled with the cloudy brownish liquid. The cup itself is worn, the rim softened and darkened from 1,000 lips. You don't think about who drank from it before you. You take your first bite of the bread. It requires serious effort from your jaw. The crust is a battle, and the inside is tough and chewy. It has a bland, slightly sour taste. You tear off a small piece and dip it into your ale to soften it, a trick you learned early on. The soggy bread is easier to swallow, and the ale washes away some of the gritty texture. You eat slowly, deliberately. Every bite is precious. This quarter loaf and a cup of ale needs to fuel you for hours, possibly until late tonight. If business is slow, there might be a thin stew or pottage in the evening. If it's busy, you'll be expected to work through, grabbing another piece of bread if you're lucky, and if the abyss is in a generous mood. Hunger is a constant, low hum in the background of your life. It's a tool the abyss uses, intentionally or not. A hungry woman is a compliant woman, There's a strange historical irony here. Many people in the Middle Ages, especially the poor, were technically malnourished but not always underfed in terms of sheer bulk. They could fill their stomachs with this kind of coarse, fiber-heavy bread and pottage, but it lacked the essential vitamins and nutrients for true health. Scurvy, with its bleeding gums and aching joints, was not just a sailor's disease. Pellagra, from a lack of niacin, could cause skin lesions and confusion. You see the signs of it all around you: the sallow skin, the dull hair, the teeth that are loose in the gums of the older women. You chew your bread, lost in the rhythm of it, and your eyes drift around the room. You see the other women, all engaged in the same slow, serious ritual of consumption. There's a desperation in the way Isabel, the new girl, gnaws at her crust, her eyes wide. She hasn't learned to pace herself yet. Marguerite, older and wiser, eats with a methodical slowness, making her portion last as long as possible. You finish your wedge of bread, every last crumb. You lick your fingers, chasing the faint, furry taste. Then you drain your cup of ale, tilting your head back to get the last drop. The meal is over. It hasn't so much satisfied your hunger as it has quieted it, pushed it back down for a little while. It sits like a stone in your stomach. The brief respite of the meal is over. The house falls back into its waiting mode. But now, with the barest minimum of fuel in your system, the next phase of preparation must begin. You are fed. Now you must be made beautiful, or at least a passable imitation of it. With breakfast a heavy lump in your stomach, the next ritual begins. Mathilde places a small, locked wooden box on the table. It's old, the wood dark and stained, but the lock is a newer, sturdier iron one. She turns the key, and the lid creaks open. This is the house's beauty chest. Inside, nestled in small earthenware pots and linen-wrapped parcels, are the tools of your transformation. She begins to hand them out, not to each woman, but placing a few pots on the table for all to share. You move closer, jostling for a position where you can reach. The first thing you grab is a small, greasy-looking pot. You pry the lid off. Inside is a thick white paste. This is cereus, the foundation of your new face. It's a mixture of white lead and vinegar, ground into a smooth, paint-like consistency. It's prized for its ability to create a smooth, porcelain-white complexion, the absolute height of fashion and a sign of aristocratic leisure. A pale face meant you didn't have to toil in the sun. For you, it means covering the sallow, unhealthy pallor of your real skin. You dip your fingers into the pot. The paste is coolant as a sharp, vinegary smell. You begin to apply it to your face, smearing it on in a thin, even layer. It feels strange, a heavy, artificial mask. You can feel it tightening on your skin as the vinegar evaporates. You know, on some level, that it's not good for you to develop a grayish tinge to their skin. Their teeth loosen, and they complain of a constant metallic taste in their mouths. Lead is a poison. It seeps into your body slowly, relentlessly. Some historians speculate that the widespread use of lead-based cosmetic contributing factor to illness and early death, not just for prostitutes, but for aristocratic women as well. It was a silent killer, worn in the name of beauty. But what choice do you have? A healthy, rosy complexion is the sign of a country girl, a common laborer. Your clients, often aspiring merchants or clerks, want the fantasy of a high-born lady, even in the squalor of a brothel. So you paint on the poison, layer by layer. Next comes the blush. It's a reddish powder, kept in a folded piece of parchment. It's made from casino beetles if you're really lucky, or more likely, from cheaper, more dangerous substances like vermilion mercuric sulfide or reed lead. You take a tiny pinch and rub it high on your cheeks, blending it into the white CERUs. The contrast is stark, to perfect circles of artificial health on a field of artificial purity. Then, the eyes. You use a small stick, charred at the end, to darken your eyebrows and line your eyes. It's crude charcoal, and it smudges easily, but it makes your eyes look larger, more defined in the dim, flickering light of the tavern. Some of the more expensive houses might have coal, a dark powder imported from the east, but here, burnt twigs will have to do. The final touch is the lips. A pot of greasy red salve, likely made from beeswax mixed with alkane tea root or another plant-based dye, is passed around. You scoop a small amount onto your finger and rub it into your lips. It tastes waxy and slightly bitter. The entire process is communal and hurried. You share the same pots, dip your fingers into the same paste as the other women, some of whom are coughing, some of whom have visible sores on their hands. It's a fantastically efficient way to spread disease, but no one thinks of it that way. You catch a reflection in a small polished piece of metal that Mathiel keeps for inspections. The person looking back at you is a stranger. A pale, white-eyed doll with red cheeks and red lips. The transformation is both shocking and routine. This is your work face. This is the mask you will wear for the next 12 to 15 hours. It doesn't look like you. It's not supposed to. There's a strange, lingering debate among scholars about how medieval people perceived makeup. Was it seen purely as a deception, a sinful vanity, as the church often preached, or was it an accepted part of social signaling, a uniform for a particular role? For you, in this moment, it's neither. It's armor. It's a barrier between the person you are underneath tired, hungry, and dirty and the person the world demands you be. The heavy, lead mask feels less like a deception and more like a shield. It hides the dark circles under your eyes, the pallor of your skin, and the weary expression that would otherwise settle on your face. Mathiel walks by, inspecting your work. She stops and uses her thumb to smudge the blush on your cheek a little higher. There, she says, her voice devoid of any warmth. Nest like a farm girl, more like a lady. It's the closest you will get to a compliment all day. You look at the other women, all in various stages of applying their own masks. Elidier's coughing has dusted her white CERUs with a fine spray. Isabel has applied her blush too heavily, making her look like a frightened clown. No one helps her. You learn by watching, by being corrected, by trial and error. The poison on your face begins to feel tight and itchy. You have a desperate urge to scratch, but you know that would ruin the smooth, white surface and earn you a sharp word from the abyss. You fight the urge, clenching your fists in your lap. The mask is on. It cannot be touched. You are no longer yourself. You are a painted vessel waiting to be filled with the desires of others. The transformation is not yet complete. The face is done, but the body must also be properly advertised. Mathiel disappears into her back room and returns with a small pile of garments. These are not for you to keep. Like the makeup, they are tools of the trade, property of the house. She hands you a specific item of clothing. It's not a full dress, but a simple, brightly colored sash or apron. Tonight, the color is a garish, impossible yellow. You take it and tie it around your waist over your own drab, grayish-brown kirtler, the simple, all-purpose dress that is the only garment you truly possess. The color is not a fashion choice. It's the law. In many towns and cities across medieval Europe, civic authorities were obsessed with order and classification. They wanted to be able to identify everyone at a glance: the noble, the cleric, the artisan, the leper, and you. Prostitutes were often legally required to wear a specific article of clothing or a particular color to mark them out in public. It was a visual signifier of your status, a way to make you instantly recognizable and to prevent you from, as they saw it, deceiving respectable folk by blending in. The exact requirement varied from place to place. In some cities, it was a striped hood. In others, a badge shaped like a reed heart sewn onto your sleeve. In this particular town, it's a yellow sash. Yellow was a color often associated with outsiders, heretics, and non-Christians. It was a color of shame, meant to set you apart from the good, God-fearing citizens of the town. You adjust the sash, smoothing it over your hips. The fabric is coarse, dyed with a cheap, pungent plant dye-like weld. It feels alien against the familiar worn wool of your kirtler. When you walk through the town to the market, or the well, which you are only allowed to do at certain times of day, this sash is a beacon. It draws stares, whispers, and sometimes stones thrown by children. It strips you of your anonymity, making you a public spectacle, a walking symbol of sin. There's a deep irony here that scholars love to point out. While the church condemned your trade as immoral, the secular town authorities often tolerated it, seeing it as a necessary evil. They would confine brothels to specific districts, the red light districts of their day, often located near the town walls or in less desirable areas, and then force the women to wear these markers. It was a way of containing the problem, making it visible and therefore, in their minds, controllable. They profited from it too, levying taxes on the brothels and the women. So you are simultaneously condemned and licensed, shamed and taxed. Eye-walking contradiction. You look around at the other women. Each is now adorned with the same bright yellow sash. It transforms your shabby common room into a bizarre, uniform flock. It's a strange sort of sisterhood, this shared mark of shame. It binds you together, a visible reminder that you are all in the same boat, sinking or floating as a group. The sash also serves a more practical purpose for the abbess. It clearly marks you as one of her girls. If you were to try and run, you would be instantly identifiable. It's a leash, as much as it is a label. You touch the fabric. It's stiff with dye. You remember the first time you had to wear it. The burning shame you felt walking outside, the way you couldn't meet anyone's eyes. Now the feeling is duller, a familiar ache rather than a sharp sting. It's just part of the costume. But sometimes, you catch a glimpse of a woman your own age, a baker's daughter or a weaver's wife, walking with her husband. She wears no bright sash, just the simple, honest clothes of her station. And in those moments, the weight of this yellow strip of cloth feels immense, a physical barrier separating you from a world of respectability you can see but never touch. One of the more peculiar and less known aspects of these clothing regulations is how incredibly specific they could be. In some legal codes, it wasn't just a color, but the cut of the dress, the type of sleeve, or even a prohibition on certain luxurious fabrics like silk or fur. The idea was to prevent a prostitute from ever looking too much like a lady of high status. The subtle class distinctions, woven into the very fabric of society, had to be maintained at all costs. A merchant might sleep with you, but heaven forbid you be mistaken for his wife on the street. The abbess gives you all one final look over. Good, she grunts. You look presentable, at least from a distance, in poor light. Her words are a slap, but they are also a dismissal. The preparations are over. The inspection is done. You are painted, you are marked, you are ready for business. All that is left now is the waiting. The long, slow, agonizing crawl of the hours until the sun begins to set and the first customers start to arrive. You sit back down on the bench, careful not to smudge your painted face or wrinkle your yellow sash. You fold your hands in your lap and stare at the empty hearth. The quiet in the room is different now. It's not the sleepy quiet of the morning or the tense quiet of inspection. It is the heavy, stagnant quiet of anticipation. A quiet that hums with a mixture of dread, boredom, and resignation. The sun, a distant and impartial observer, begins its slow crawl across the sky. You mark its progress by the way the slivers of light from the shuttered windows creep across the grimy floor. Time in the brothel has a strange, syrupy quality. The hours of waiting stretch out, thin and elastic, while the moments of work will later feel compressed and frantic. There is nothing to do. Nothing is provided for your amusement or occupation. No books, no music, no games. An idle mind might lead to dangerous thoughts, and idle hands might get into mischief. So you simply sit. You sit on the hard bench, your back aching, trying to find a position that is comfortable without disturbing your carefully constructed appearance. The lead paint on your face feels like a clay mask, cracking slightly when you move your expression. The itch you felt this morning returns, a phantom tickle on your scalp, under your clothes. You are forbidden to scratch. The silence in the common room is a living thing. It's punctuated by the wet rasp of Elodia's cough, the soft, rhythmic creak of the floorboards as someone shifts their weight, the distant clang of a blacksmith's hammer from somewhere in the town. These small sounds only serve to emphasize the vast, empty quiet that surrounds them. This is, in some ways, the hardest part of the day. The work itself is a grim, physical reality, but this waiting, this is a void. It's a space that your mind, starved of any other stimulation, rushes to fill, and it rarely fills it with pleasantry. You find yourself staring at the wood grain of the table. You trace the dark, swirling lines with your eyes, following them as they loop and dive, imagining they are roads leading far away from here, to a small village with a stream, to a forest where the only sound is the wind in the trees. You build these little worlds in your head, fragile fantasies that evaporate the moment someone coughs or a cart rumbles past the door. You look over at the other women. Each is lost in her own private world of waiting. Marguerite, the oldest, seems almost to be asleep with her eyes open, her face a blank mask of practiced indifference. She has been doing this for 20 years. You wonder what she thinks about, or if she has trained herself to think of nothing at all. Is that the secret to survival? To empty yourself out completely? Isabel, the new girl, fidgets constantly. She picks at a loose thread on her sleeve, jiggles her foot, bites her lip. Her anxiety is a palpable energy, a vibrating hum that makes you feel tired just watching her. She hasn't learned the art of stillness yet. She hasn't learned that fighting the boredom only makes it worse. The church, of course, had a name for this state of mind. Acedia. It's often translated as sloth, but it's more complex than simple laziness. It was a kind of spiritual listlessness, a profound apathy and weariness of the soul, a feeling that nothing matters. Monks in their lonely cells were considered particularly susceptible to it. It was called the noonday demon. Looking around this room, at the blank faces and lifeless postures, you feel you are in a convent of a very different sort, and the noonday demon has every one of you in his grip. Historians debate whether the psychological concepts of the past, like acedia, can be mapped directly onto modern ideas like depression. But sitting here in this enforced, empty stillness, you feel it not as a sin, but as a logical response to a life devoid of hope or purpose. To pass the time, you play a little game. You try to remember the faces of all the men from the previous night. The big, red-faced wool merchant with ale on his breath, the quiet, nervous clerk who couldn't look you in the eye, the two sailors, smelling of salt and tar, who laughed too loudly. They blur into a single, generic male face, a collection of hands and coins, and whispers. It's easier that way, to forget the specifics, to turn them into a faceless, shapeless monolith of work. Sometimes a small, mundane event will break the monotony. A mouse might dart across the floor, causing a brief stir, or you might hear the abbess arguing with a delivery man at the back door. These are moments of high drama in a day composed almost entirely of nothing. You hear a soft thud from upstairs. One of the women has probably just dropped back onto her straw bed, seeking a few more moments of oblivion before the evening begins. Mathel doesn't like you to be in the dormitories during the day. You are supposed to be downstairs, ready, on display, even if there's no one to see you. The light shifting on the floor tells you it's now late afternoon. The day has been squandered in this stupor. Soon, the abbess will unbolt the front door. The sign of the house, a painted red letters or a bush hung over the door, the traditional symbols of a tavern or brothel, will announce to the town that you are open for business. A new kind of tension begins to creep into the room. The listless boredom starts to curdle into a low-grade anxiety. Who will walk through that door tonight? Will they be kind or cruel? Drunk or sober? Generous or stingy? The uncertainty of it is a cold knot in your stomach, a knot that tightens with each passing minute. You take a slow, quiet breath, the air thick with the smell of stale ale and old wood. You smooth your yellow sash one last time. You check your painted face in the reflection of your empty cup. The doll looks back at you, her eyes wide and dark, her expression unreadable. She is ready. You are not. But it doesn't matter. The silence is about to break. The sound is unmistakable. The heavy, metallic clank of the iron bolt being drawn back from the front door. It's a sound that makes you sit up straighter, a sound that signals the end of waiting and the beginning of work. Mathild pushes the heavy oak door open just a crack, letting a sliver of the bustling evening street into the quiet gloom of the common room. The muffled sounds of voices, cartwheels on cobblestones, and a distant dog barking flood in for a moment before she pulls it to, leaving it resting on the latch. You are now open. You and the other women instinctively rearrange yourselves on the benches. You are no longer just sitting. You are posing. You adopt an attitude of what you hope is alluring nonchalance. One woman leans forward, resting her chin on her hand. Another laughs softly at something no one said. You simply sit with your back straight, your hands folded in your lap, your eyes cast demurely downwards but ready to flick up at a moment's notice. It's a silent, pathetic tableau. The minutes tick by. The first knock is always the most jarring. It comes, not a loud bang, but a series of 3 quick, almost hesitant taps. Every head in the room turns towards the door. The abbess, who has taken her seat at a small table near the entrance hercum and post, gives a sharp, almost imperceptible nod to Marguerite. Marguerite rises smoothly and walks to the door, her hips swaying in a practiced, fluid motion. She opens it. A man stands silhouetted against the dusky evening light. H.E.S. of medium height, dressed in the sober dark clothes of a town clerk or a minor merchant. He peers into the gloom of the room, his eyes adjusting. Marguerite gives him a low, welcoming smile. "Good evening, sir. Won't you come in out of the chill?" He hesitates for a second, then steps inside, and Marguerite closes the door behind him, plunging the room back into its familiar dimness, lit only by a few tallow candles that have now been lit, casting long dancing shadows. The candles are made from animal fat, and they give off a greasy, unpleasant smell and a smoky, flickering light. The man's eyes sweep the room, taking in the scene. He sees the line of painted faces, the flash of yellow sashes, the array of choices. You feel his gaze pass over you, a quick, appraising glance. You meet his eyes for just a second, and you offer the smallest, most fleeting of smiles. It's a delicate calculation. Too eager, and you seem desperate. Too distant, and you lose the sale. This moment is a strange, silent negotiation that historians can only guess at. What was the etiquette of the brothel? Did men browse as if in a market? Did the women call out, or was it a silent choice? It likely varied greatly, but here, in Mathilance, the choice belongs to the customer. You are simply the wares. The abbess rises. "A cup of ale for the gentleman," she asks, her voice suddenly smooth and welcoming. A complete transformation from the sharp-tongued harpy of the morning. "Aye," the man says, his voice quiet. He walks towards the trestle table and takes a seat at the far end, as if to put some distance between himself and the rows of watching women. Elodie, obeying her earlier instructions, hurries to the barrel and draws a cup of the better ale, the one reserved for customers, and brings it to him. He takes a long drink, his eyes still roaming over the women on the benches. You can feel the weight of his decision. H.E.S. not just choosing a body. H.E.S. choosing an experience, a fantasy. Does he want the fresh-faced youth of Isabel? The worldly, knowing air of Marguerite, or something in between? You try not to hold your breath. You try to look relaxed, available but not desperate. You shift slightly, letting the candlelight catch the curve of your neck. It's a tiny, calculated movement, part of a language you have learned to speak without words. His eyes meet yours again. This time they linger for a moment longer. You hold his gaze, your practiced, gentle smile fixed in place. There's a flicker of something in his expression, weariness maybe, loneliness. You can't be sure. It's dangerous to try and read them too closely to imagine they have inner lives beyond their immediate desires. He gives a small, almost imperceptible nod in your direction. The abbess sees it. Of course she sees it. She misses nothing. She gives you a sharp, commanding look. It's your cue. You rise from the bench. Your heart is beating a little faster now, a dull, steady rhythm in your chest. You smooth your dress and your sash, and you begin to walk towards him. The floorboards creak under your feet. The other women watch you, their expressions a mixture of relief that it wasn't them, and envy that you will earn a coin. You stop beside his table. "Good evening, sir," you say, your voice a soft murmur. You've practiced this voice. It's slower than your natural speech, with a slight, breathy quality. He looks up at you. "What's your name?" he asks. You give him the name you use here, not your real one. The real one is the only thing you still own. "I am called Amelini," you say. He nods again, finishing his ale. He places a few coins on the table. The abbess, with predator's timing, is there in an instant to sweep them up. She examines them, bites one to test its silver content, and then nods. The transaction is complete. The price is paid. The man stands up. "He is not much taller than you." "Come," he says, his voice flat. You turn and lead the way towards the narrow, steep staircase at the back of the room. Every step feels heavy. You are acutely aware of the eyes on your back, the eyes of the other women, the eyes of the abbess. You are leaving the public space of the common room and entering the private space of work. Each step up the creaking stairs takes you further into the performance, and further away from the small, quiet core of yourself that you try so desperately to protect. The first knock has been answered. Your workday has truly begun. You lead the man up the rickety staircase. The air grows warmer and stale as you ascend, back into the familiar atmosphere of the sleeping quarters. You don't go to the large room you share with the other women. Along the narrow hallway are a few tiny, closet-like rooms, barely large enough for a straw pallet and a small stool. These are the workrooms. You push open one of the crude wooden doors and step inside. The man follows you, ducking his head to get under the low door frame. He closes the door, and the room is plunged into near total darkness. There is no window. The only light comes from the faint cracks in the door and the thin floorboards filtering up from the common room below. The room smells of straw and sex. A faint, cloying, sweet and sour odor that clings to everything. You can hear the muffled sounds of the common room through the floor, a man's gruff laugh, the clink of a cup. The encounter itself is mercifully brief. It is a transaction of the body, stripped of all emotion or intimacy. You are a vessel for his quiet, lonely urgency. You do what is expected of you, your mind detaching, floating somewhere up near the cobweb bed ceiling beams. You focus on the rhythm of your own breathing, on the rough texture of the wool blanket beneath you, on the distant sounds from downstairs. You make yourself a ghost in your own body. This is the most crucial skill of your trade, the art of being absent. When it's over, there's a moment of awkward silence. He dresses quickly, his movements clumsy in the dark. You sit up, pulling the scratchy blanket around yourself. You don't speak. There is nothing to say. He fumbles with the latch on the door, opens it, and is gone without a backward glance. You are left alone in the small, dark, smelly room. The silence he leaves behind is profound. You sit there for a moment, letting the mask of Amelini dissolve. The doll-like smile is gone, the soft, breathy voice is silent. You adjust you again, in the dark. A wave of something, not sadness, that's too sharp a word, but a deep, hollow weariness washes over you. But you cannot linger. Time is money, as the abbess is fond of saying. Another customer might be waiting. And before you can return downstairs, the most painful part of the ritual must be performed. Against the wall, there is a small wooden bucket with a lid, and a stack of what look like scraps of old linen. You lift the lid. The sharp, acrid smell of vinegar fills the tiny room, making your eyes water. This is your cleansing agent. You take one of the linen rags, it's rough, and not entirely clean from its last use, and dip it into the vinegar. You wince as you perform the perfunctory, painful cleansing. The vinegar is harsh and undiluted. It burns. It's a sharp, stinging fire on skin that is already sensitive and chafed. You bite your lip to keep from crying out. This is the brutal reality behind the demand for cleanliness. Without access to clean water, soap, or any understanding of germ theory, women in your position were forced to rely on whatever harsh astringents were available. Vinegar was common. Wine, especially sour wine, was also used. Some historical sources, though they are often hostile and exaggerated, even mention the use of things like stay urine, valued for its ammonia content. Whether this is slander or truth is hard to prove, but the core fact remains. The methods of hygiene were often more damaging than the lack of it. They created a cycle of irritation, inflammation, and infection. You are trying to scour yourself clean with an acid. It's a perfect, painful metaphor for your entire existence. You are trying to erase the physical evidence of your work, but the very act of erasure leaves its own scars. There is a constant, ongoing debate among medical historians about the specific health consequences of these practices. They argue about the prevalence rates of various infections, the long-term effects of using lead-based makeup, and the impact of these caustic douches. But from your perspective, sitting here in the dark with your skin on fire, the debate is meaningless. All you know is that you must do this. All you know is that you must do this after every single client, multiple times a night. The pain is part of the job description. You finish the agonizing ritual, dropping the used rag into a separate bucket to be washed later, a process that likely just involves a quick rinse in that same murky basin in the yard. You take a moment, breathing through the stinging sensation, waiting for it to subside into a dull, familiar burn. You stand up and smooth down your kirtle and your yellow sash. You take a deep breath, trying to compose yourself. You have to go back downstairs and put the mask of Omelini back on. You have to sit on the bench and smile your little half smile and wait for the next nod, the next climb up the stairs, the next lonely encounter in the dark, and the next basin of stinging vinegar. You open the door and step back out into the dimly lit hallway. The sounds from the common room seem louder now. A man is singing a body, drunken song. Someone laughs. Life, such as it is, goes on. You walk towards the stairs, your movements a little stiff, a little sore. You are a professional. You will show none of what you are feeling. You will descend the stairs, return to your seat, and become a beautiful, painted doll once more. Downstairs, the common room is more crowded now, thicker with smoke and the smell of men. 3 or 4 other customers are scattered around the tables, drinking and talking in low voices. The air is warmer, stickier. 2 of the other women are gone, presumably upstairs in the small, dark rooms, engaged in the same work you just completed. You slide back into your place on the bench, next to Isabel. She gives you a quick, nervous glance. You offer her a tiny, reassuring nod, a silent acknowledgement of your shared reality. You feel a brief pang of something like pity for her. She's so new to this, the fear still so fresh in her eyes. You remember your own first weeks, the constant terror, the feeling that you would shatter into a million pieces. You haven't shattered, but you wonder if you've just been ground down to a fine, numb powder instead. The abbess catches your eye from her post. She gives a slight, sharp jerk of her head towards your lap. You look down, the 3-cornered tear in the hem of your kirtle. You had forgotten. In the haze of the morning and the grim reality of your first client, it had slipped your mind. Her expression is a cold, clear reminder. I told you to fix that. You give a submissive dip of your head to show you understand. You know you can't put it off any longer. You wait for a moment when she is distracted, haggling with a new customer over the price of a full bottle of wine. Then you quietly stand and go to her. Abbess, you murmur, keeping your voice low. May I have a needle and thread? For my hem. She doesn't look at you. Her eyes are still on the customer and his coin purse. In the box, she says, her voice dismissive. She gestures with her chin towards a small wooden chest tucked under her table. Bring them back to me when you are done. And be quick about it to be a seamstress. Yes, Abbess. You kneel by the chest and open the lid. Inside is a jumble of household odds and ends. Spare candle wicks, a lump of beeswax, a few dried herbs for chasing away insects, and thankfully, a small roll of linen fabric containing a few precious needles and a spool of coarse, brown thread. Needles are valuable. They are difficult to make, easily lost and essential. A good steel needle was a prized possession. The ones in this box are crude, made of iron or bone, and slightly bent. You select the straightest one you can find and pull off a length of thread. You return to your seat on the bench, tucking yourself into the corner to be as inconspicuous as possible. You are supposed to be available, and mending your clothes looks like you are occupied. It's a delicate balance, obeying one of the abyss's commands without seeming to neglect your primary duty. You bend your head, lifting the hem of your dress onto your lap. The light from the tallow candles is poor, flickering and casting deceptive shadows. It's hard to see the tiny eye of the needle. You bring it close to your face, squinting, and after a few frustrating attempts, you manage to push the thick thread through. You begin to sew. Your stitches are small and clumsy. You were never taught to sew properly. You are a butcher of fabric, not a tailor. But you do your best, pulling the thread tight to close the gap in the warm wool. This simple, domestic act feels strangely out of place in the context of the brothel. Mending a tear is what a wife would do by her own fireside, what a mother would do for her child. Here, it is just another part of the job, another piece of maintenance on the equipment. Your dress, like your body, must be kept in working order. This kirtler is the only thing that is truly yours. It was given to you when you first came here, a hand-me-down from a woman who had left or died. It's made of cheap, scratchy wool, dyed a muddy brown with walnut husks. It's been patched and patched so many times that some areas are more thread than original fabric. It carries the history of your time here in its stains and repairs. There's a fascinating, if slightly grim, area of historical study focused on textiles. By analyzing surviving fragments of fabric, archaeologists can learn about the weaving techniques, the dyes used, and the economic status of the owner. They can tell the difference between the fine, brightly colored wool of the rich and the coarse, undyed age-hardened gray of the poor. Your dress is a textbook example of the latter. It's a garment made for durability, not comfort, and it has been worn long past its natural lifespan. As you sew, your mind drifts. The repetitive motion of the needle in and out is almost hypnotic. It's a small, focused task that temporarily blocks out the noise and smell of the room. For a few minutes, you are not a painted woman on a bench. You are just a person mending a tear. You finish the last stitch and bite the thread off with your teeth. The repair is lumpy and uneven, a visible scar on the fabric. But the hole is closed. It will hold. You look up. A man at a nearby table is watching you. He is a large, bearded man, a carter or a drover by the look of his rough-spun clothes. He is not looking at you with desire, but with a strange, almost pitying expression. He saw your small, domestic act. He saw the person behind the paint. It makes you deeply uncomfortable. Pity is more dangerous than lust. Lust is a transaction. Pity is a reminder of what you've lost. You quickly drop your gaze back to your lap. You tuck the needle back into its cloth and take it, along with the spool of thread, back to the abyss. You place them in her hand. She doesn't even glance at them, just drops them back into the chest and closes the lid with a decisive thud. You return to your seat. The brief respite is over, the tear is mended. The equipment is repaired. You are once again fully open for business. You smooth down the repaired hem, the rough patch a secret reminder of the few moments of quiet focus in a long and chaotic night. The night wears on, a slow procession of men and transactions. Another client chooses you. This one is younger, a boy really, an apprentice trying to act like a man. He is nervous and quick, and the whole encounter in the dark, stuffy room is over in a matter of moments. You go through the motions. The feigned interest, the brief physical act, the burning vinegar rinse. Then it's back downstairs to the bench, to the waiting. The common room is emptying out a little. Some men have left, and no new ones have immediately replaced them. In this brief lull, a fragile, temporary peace settles over the room. It's in these moments that the other side of this life reveals itself. Elodie, her coughing fit having subsided for now, slides closer to you on the bench. Marguerite, who has also just returned from an upstairs errand, joins you on the other side. The three of you form a small, tight knot in the corner of the room. The Cooper from down the lane, Marguerite says, her voice a low, conspiratorial whisper. He paid with a bent coin again. Mathilde almost took his head off. Elodie lets out a soft, wheezing laugh. She could take his head off with a sharp look, that one. You smile, a real smile this time, small and fleeting. Did she take it? You ask. Made him swap it for a good one, Marguerite shrugs. He always tries. You'd think he'd learn. This is the currency of your downtime. Gossip, rumors, small observations. It's how you make sense of your world, how you map the personalities and habits of the men who come here, and of the woman who rules over you. You trade information like it's a precious commodity. Who is generous? Who is rough? Who is likely to cause trouble? Who is likely to cause trouble? This shared knowledge is a form of protection, a collective intelligence that helps you navigate the dangers of your work. Isabelle had a weeper tonight, Elodie whispers, her eyes flicking towards the new girl who is sitting alone at the other end of the bench, looking miserable. A young one, a student from the university, cried all over her shoulder about his tutor. Better than a biter, Marguerite says grimly, and you all nod in sober agreement. These conversations are the lifeblood of the house. They are a way to affirm your shared experience, to remind yourselves that you are not alone in this. While men write the histories and the laws, you are writing your own oral history, one whispered conversation at a time. It's a history that will never be recorded, full of details that are too small, too personal, too female for the official chronicles. Historians who study this life often have to read between the lines of court records and moralizing sermons to try and reconstruct the voices of the women themselves. They look for hints of agency, of friendship, of resistance. They are looking for this exact conversation, the one happening right now in the corner of a smoky room. The debate over the agency of medieval prostitutes is a fierce one. Were they purely victims, passive objects of male desire and economic exploitation? Or did they find ways to exert control, to build relationships, to resist their circumstances in small but meaningful ways? The answer you feel in your bones is both. You are undeniably a victim of your circumstances. But, in these whispered conversations, in the shared nod of understanding with Marguerite, in the brief moment of sympathy for Isabelle, there is a flicker of something else. A flicker of a chosen community, a sisterhood forged in the most unlikely of places. Did you hear about the house over on Weaver's Lane? Elodie asks, her voice dropping even lower. The one with the red door. Town guard raided it last night. Said they weren't paying their dues. Marguerite's notes. More likely they didn't pay the captain his special fee. This is vital news. It's a reminder of the precariances of your own situation. Your house, your abyss, exists in a delicate balance with the town authorities. As long as the taxes are paid and the right palms are greased, you are left alone. But that can change in an instant, on the whim of a greedy guard captain or a zealous new town councilman. You listen, absorbing the information. You don't speak much yourself. You've always been a listener, a watcher. You store away the details. The Cooper's bent coin, the weeping student, the raid on the rival house. Each one is a small piece of a much larger, more dangerous puzzle. The camaraderie is real, but it is also fragile. You are sisters in sorrow, but you are also competitors. When a wealthy client walks through the door, the silent tension between you is palpable. Every coin one of you earns is a coin the others did not. The abbess is skilled at fostering this dynamic, offering small rewards, an extra piece of bread, a less warm blanket for the highest earner of the week. She pits you against each other, a quiet strategy to prevent you from ever becoming too unified, too powerful as a group. For now, though, in this quiet moment, the competition is forgotten. There is only the shared warmth of proximity, the comfort of knowing that the woman next to you understands your life in a way no one else possibly could. She knows the sting of the vinegar, the weight of the painted mask, the profound emptiness of the waiting. The front door creaks open again, and a new group of men, loud and boisterous, stumbles in. The moment is shattered. The quiet conspiracy dissolves. You instinctively pull away from each other, straightening up, putting your work faces back on. The brief, warm bubble of community has burst, and you are all back to being individual commodities, sitting on a bench, waiting to be chosen. The new arrivals are town guards. You recognize them instantly, not just by their worn leather jacks and the dented steel caps some of them wear, but by their swagger. They carry themselves with an air of ownership, as if they are not customers, but landlords making an inspection. There are 3 of them, led by a corporal named Shock. HES, a man with a fleshy face, a perpetually smug expression, and a reputation for cruelty. He is, in essence, the physical embodiment of the town's hypocritical relationship with your house. He is here to keep the peace, which in practice means ensuring Mathalde's business runs smoothly enough to pay its taxes and fines, a portion of which will undoubtedly find its way into his own pocket. The other men in the common room, the merchants and the clerks, fall quiet. No one wants trouble with the guard. The atmosphere in the room shifts from boisterous to tense. The abbess rises to meet them, her face a carefully constructed mask of welcome. Corporal Jacques, an honor to have you and your men with us tonight. The first round is on the house, of course. Of course, Jacques says, a sly grin spreading across his face. He and his men slump down at the largest table, right in the center of the room, and bang their fists on the wood. The good stuff, Mathald. None of that watery so you serve the farmers. Only the best for our protectors, Matheld replies, her voice dripping with a sweetness so false it could curdle milk. She gestures to you undelicately. Girls, see to the corporal and his men. You get up and hurry to the barrel of customer grey ale. Your hands are trembling slightly as you fill the heavy pewter jacks. A visit from the guard is never good. At best, it's an expensive nuisance. At worst, it's a night of terror. You carry the heavy mugs to the table. You place them down carefully, avoiding eye contact. But Jacques is not one to be ignored. He grabs your wrist as you turn to leave. His grip is like iron. Well now, Omelini, he says, his breath hot and smelling of sour wine. You're looking pale tonight. Not sickening for something, are we? The town pays for healthy girls. I am well, Corporal, you say, your voice barely a whisper. You try to pull your wrist away, but he tightens his grip. Good. Glad to hear it. He releases you with a sudden shove that makes you stumble. His men laugh. You retreat to the safety of the bench, your heart pounding. Your wrist throbs where he gripped it. This is the nature of your protection. The guards who are supposed to prevent violence are often the perpetrators of it. They operate in a grey area of the law, their power almost absolute within these walls. You have no recourse. To whom would you complain? The relationship between brothels and law enforcement in the Middle Ages was complex and deeply corrupt. Officially, the town guard was there to enforce the regulations, to make sure the brothel stayed in its designated zone, that the women wore their identifying markers, and that no major crimes like murder occurred on the premises. Unofficially, it was an extortion racket. Brothel keepers paid for protection, which was really just paying the guards not to harass them or shut them down on a whim. The academic world still discusses the exact nature of this relationship. Was it a formalized system of taxation and licensing, or a more chaotic, personalized system of bribes and threats? The truth is it was likely both. A man like Jacques was both a state official and a petty tyrant, and he thrived on the ambiguity. Jacques and his men drink deeply, their voices loud and abrasive, ruining the atmosphere for the other paying customers. One by one, the merchants and clerks finish their drinks, pay, and slip out, unwilling to be in the same room as the boisterous, unpredictable guards. You watch them go with a sinking feeling. The guards are scaring away the real business. After they've finished their free round, Jacques leans back in his chair and eyes the woman lined up on the bench. He is shopping, and he expects a discount. He points a thick finger at Isabel. You, the new one. You'll do. Isabel freezes, her face draining of all color. She looks desperately towards the abbess, but Mathilde's face is a stony mask. This is a cost of doing business. Isabel rises, her movement stiff with terror, and goes upstairs with one of the other guards. Shock then turns his attention to Marguerite, his gaze lingering on her. Marguerite, ever the professional, simply raises an eyebrow, her expression unreadable. She has dealt with men like Shock for 2 decades. She knows how to survive them. She and Jock guard remains downstairs. The third guard remains downstairs, drinking and making crude jokes to the remaining women. You are left sitting on the bench, a forgotten item for now. You feel a strange mixture of immense relief and survivor's guilt. You watch the clock in your head, counting the minutes until they come back down. You pray that Isabel will be all right. You know Marguerite can handle herself, but Isabel is so young, so fragile. The minutes stretch into an eternity. Finally, you hear footsteps on the stairs. Marguerite descends first, her face impassive. Then Jock, looking pleased with himself. A few moments later, Isabel follows. She is pale and trembling, and she refuses to meet anyone's eyes. She scurries back to the bench and curls into a tight ball in the corner, hiding her face. Jock and his men drain their mugs, shove their chairs back, and head for the door. Jock pauses and turns to the abbess. "A good night, Mathilde," he says. "We'll be back next week to collect the taxes." "I will have them ready, Corporal," she says. And then they are gone. The door closes, and a heavy, wounded silence descends on the common room. The night's profits are gone, scared away by the very men who are supposed to be protecting your trade. And a new layer of fear and misery has been slathered over the house. The abbess says nothing. She just walks over to Isabel, grabs her by the arm, and pulls her to her feet. "Get back in line," she hisses. The night isn't over. The heavy, oppressive atmosphere left by the guards lingers in the room long after they've departed. The few remaining customers left quickly, and for a while, no one new arrives. The abbess is in a foul mood, pacing back and forth in front of the hearth like a caged animal, furious at the loss of the night's income. Isabel is still silently crying in the corner, trying to make herself invisible. The rest of you just sit, tense and quiet, waiting for the abbess's anger to either erupt or subside. Finally, the front door creaks open again. You all look up, bracing for more trouble. But the man who enters is completely different from the guards. He is old, perhaps in his late 50s, with a fringe of white hair around a bald scalp and a stoop in his shoulders. He wears the fine but well-worn robes of a scholar or a notary, and he carries a small leather-bound book under his arm. He blinks in the dim light, his expression gentle and slightly lost. You've seen him before, maybe once or twice a month. The abbess stops her pacing and forces a smile. "Master Elias, a pleasure." The usual. The old man nods a shy, bird-like movement of his head. "The usual, if you please, Mathilde." He places a few coins on her table, always the correct amount, paid up front without any haggling. Mathilde looks around the room, her eyes skipping over the weeping Isabel and the hardened Marguerite. Her gaze settles on you. "Amelini," she says, her voice returning to its businesslike tone. "Accompany Master Elias." You rise, a sense of calm descending over you. This is not like the others. You know what the usual means with Master Elias. You lead him up the familiar creaking stairs, but you don't stop at one of the small dark workrooms. Instead, you continue up another, even narrower flight of stairs, a set that is rarely used, leading to a small attic room tucked directly under the eaves. The room is little more than a storage space, filled with old broken furniture and dusty sacks. But in one corner, there is a single, relatively intact wooden chair and a small crate that serves as a table. A stump of a candle sits on the crate. You take a flint and steel from your pocket, one of the few things you're allowed to keep, and light the candle. A small, warm pool of light pushes back the thick darkness. Master Elias settles himself in the chair with a grateful sigh. You sit on a nearby sack of what feels like old wool. He doesn't look at you with lust or even with pity. He looks at you with a kind of weary friendliness. "It has been a long day, Amelini," he says, his voice soft. "A very long day." "Yes, Master Elias," you reply. And then he begins to talk. He talks about his work, the endless copying of legal documents, the disputes between merchants over shipments of wine, the complexities of a dowry negotiation. He complains about his apprentice, who is lazy and spills ink. He talks about his wife's rheumatism, which is worse in the damp weather. He talks about a passage he read in an old book, a story about a Roman general who grew cabbages. You just listen. You are not a Mellini the painted doll. You are not a body for sale. In this room, for this half an hour, you are just a quiet presence, a listening ear. You don't have to speak much. You just nod and make a small sound of agreement or sympathy now and then. Is that so? How terrible. This is the strangest transaction in the whole house, and in some ways the most human. He is not paying for sex. He is paying for the illusion of a confidant. He is paying for a woman to listen to his troubles without judgment, without offering advice, without making demands of her own. He is buying, for a few coins, a brief respite from his own life. And in doing so he is giving you a respite from yours. Why he chooses a brothel for this is a question historians might ponder. Perhaps it's the anonymity. You are outside his social world. He can confess his worries and frustrations to you without fear of them becoming town gossip. Perhaps it's a form of loneliness so profound that this is the only way he knows how to connect with another person. The line between commercial sex and other forms of paid intimacy has always been blurry, and this encounter sits squarely in that grey, hazy borderland. Some scholars call this affective labor the work of managing emotions, both your own and your clients'. It's a form of labor that is often invisible unaccompanied, but deeply exhausting. Yet, with Master Elias, it feels less like labor and more like a strange, quiet gift. He opens the small book he brought with him. It's not a religious text, but a book of poetry. By the flickering candlelight he begins to read aloud. It's in a language you don't understand, Latin, perhaps, or a courtly French dialect. The words are meaningless to you, but the rhythm is soft and lulling. You close your eyes and just listen to the sound, to the gentle cadence of his old, tired voice. For these few minutes, the brothel downstairs, with its smoke and its smells and its pain, ceases to exist. There is only this small dusty room, the warm candlelight, and the sound of poetry you cannot comprehend. It's a moment of profound and unexpected peace. It's a crack of light in a day of suffocating darkness. He reads for maybe 10 minutes, then closes the book with a soft sigh. "Oh, well," he says, "that is all the time I have. My wife will be expecting me." He stands up, his old joints creaking. "Thank you, Omalini," he says, and his eyes are clear and kind. "You are a good listener." "You are welcome, Master Elias," you say. You lead him back down the stairs. At the bottom, he gives a polite nod to the abbess, and then he is gone, disappearing into the night. You return to your bench. The other women look at you with a mixture of curiosity and envy. They all know about Master Elias. He is the easy client, the one everyone hopes for. You sit down, the ghost of the poetry still humming in your ears. The encounter has left no physical mark, no need for the stinging vinegar. But it has left an emotional one. It's a reminder that kindness can exist in the most unexpected places. But it's a dangerous reminder too. It makes the cruelty of the rest of the night hard. You can visit world, a world of books and quiet conversation, a world you can visit for half an hour, but can never ever inhabit. Beautiful anomaly only serves to highlight the grim, unending reality of the norm. The brief, strange peace of Master Elias's visit evaporates as soon as the door closes behind him. The reality of the common room reasserts itself with its familiar smells and tensions. A few new customers have trickled in, and the business of the night resumes its grim rhythm. You are chosen again, this time by a weaver, his hands stained with blue dye and his clothes smelling of lanolin. The transaction is quick, impersonal, and followed by the now familiar sting of the vinegar rinse. As you descend the stairs afterwards, your body aching with a deep, soul-level weariness, you notice Elodie is not on the bench. You scan the room and see her in the corner by the hearth, trying to stifle another one of her deep, rattling coughs. This time it's worse. The coughs rack her thin frame, leaving her breathless and gasping. She leans against the stone wall for support, her face pale and sweaty under the layers of lead paint. Marguerite goes to her, rubbing her back, murmuring something soothing. The abbess watches from her chair, her face a mask of cold fury. A sick girl is a broken tool. A sick girl is a liability. Elodie's coughing fit finally subsides, but when she pulls her hand away from her mouth, you see it. A small bright smear of red on the back of her hand. Blood. A collective, silent gasp seems to pass through the women who see it. This is the sign you all dread. A dry cough can be ignored. A fever can be hidden. But coughing up blood is a death sentence, and everyone knows it. It's the sign of consumption, the wasting sickness that hollows you out from the inside. Mathelda's on her feet in an instant. She strides over to Elodie, grabs her arm, and hauls her towards the back of the house, away from the eyes of the few remaining customers. Get to your bed, she hisses, her voice a low, vicious snarl, and do not come down again. Do you hear me? Elodie, too weak to argue, just nods, tears streaming down her face, and stumbles towards the stairs leading to the dormitory. You watch her go, a cold dread coiling in your stomach. You know what will happen now. Elodie will be confined to her straw pallet. She will be given the bare minimum of food and water, just enough to keep her from dying too noisily in the house. She will not be allowed to work. She will earn no money. Her debt to the abyss will grow each day, an anchor pulling her down. Eventually, when she is too weak to even get up, she will be put out on the street, or perhaps taken to the infirmary of a poorhouse, a place people only went to die. Sickness was a constant, terrifying shadow hanging over your life. The living conditions, the filth, the cold, the shared utensils, the constant close contact with dozens of people, made the brothel a perfect incubator for disease. Tuberculosis, the consumption that Elodie likely has, spread easily in the crowded, poorly ventilated rooms. But that was just one of many threats. There were the skin diseases, the rashes and sores that could be caused by anything from lice bites to syphilis. The Great Pox was a relatively new and terrifying disease in Europe at this time, and its symptoms, painful chancres, debilitating rushes, and eventually madness and death, were the subject of horror stories. Historians and paleopathologists, who study diseases in ancient remains, fiercely debate the exact origins and spread of diseases like syphilis. Was it a New World disease brought back by Columbus's sailors, or had a milder form already existed in Europe? For you, the academic debate is irrelevant. All you know is the fear. You see a new rash on your own skin, or on the skin, or on the skin, or on the skin of another woman, and your blood runs cold. You feel a fever coming on. To be sick was to lose your ability to work, and to lose your ability to work was to lose your place in this house, which, as terrible as it is the only shelter you have. You look at the spot on the floor where Elodie stood. It feels contaminated, cursed. You think about the cup she drank from earlier, the makeup pot she dipped her fingers into, the very air you all breathed. You are all swimming in a sea of invisible poisons. A profound sense of fatalism settles over you. You are all walking a tightrope. On one side is violence and starvation, on the other is disease, and the rope is fraying. The incident has soured the mood of the entire house. The remaining customers, sensing the tension and fear, finish their drinks and leave. The night's business dwindles to an early, unprofitable close. The abbess returns to the common room, her face like a thundercloud. She is not sad for Elodie. She is furious at the inconvenience, at the loss of an earning body, at the potential damage to her house's reputation. She claps her hands sharply. The night is over, she announces to the empty room. Clean this filth. It's her final word on the matter. Elodie has been erased. The house will move on. But you can't erase the image of the blood on her hand. You can't erase the sound of her cough. You can't erase the chilling knowledge that her fate could, at any moment, become your own. As you start to collect the dirty mugs and wipe down the sticky tables, you feel a new ache, a deep, internal shiver that has nothing to do with the cold. It is the cold, hard certainty of your own disposability. With the customers gone and the house closed for the night, a new set of chores begins. But before you can join the others in cleaning the common room, you feel a familiar, dull ache deep in your abdomen. A cramp. It's a feeling you've been dreading, a monthly misery that adds another layer of complication and discomfort to your already difficult life. You quietly excuse yourself, murmuring something about the chamber pot, and slip up the stairs. You don't go to the dormitory. Instead, You go to a small, hidden nook under the staircase where each woman keeps her few, meager personal effects in a small cloth bag. You rummage in your bag, your fingers searching for a small bundle of fabric. You pull it out. It's a collection of old, stained rags. These are your sanitary provisions. They are scraps of linen and wool, cut from old, discarded clothing. They are soft from countless washings, but also threadbare and permanently discolored. This is how you manage your menstruation. There are no disposable products, no specially designed items. You have only these reusable cloths. You fold one of the rags into a thick pad and arrange it as best you can within your chemise. It's bulky, uncomfortable, and not particularly secure. Throughout the next few days, you will live with the constant, low-level anxiety of it shifting or leaking, a potential source of deep shame and a certain target for the abbess's wrath, as it would stain the house's precious, shared straw mattresses. When a rag is used, you must wash it. This involves a furtive trip to the yard, to that same basin of cold, murky water. You have to rinse it, as best you can, trying to be discreet, away from the eyes of men or the critical gaze of the abbess. The cloths are never truly clean. They are washed in cold water, without soap, and often have to be dried in secret, tucked away in a corner of the dormitory where they remained damp and musty. The result is a constant state of discomfort. The damp fabric chafes your skin, leading to rashes and irritation. The lack of proper hygiene means that infections are a common and painful consequence. It's another source of silent suffering, another aspect of your health that is completely ignored. The history of menstruation is a fascinating and often hidden one. For centuries, it was a topic shrouded in silence, superstition, and shame. What did women actually do? The historical record is frustratingly quiet on the matter, as it was a subject deemed unworthy of mention by the male chroniclers who wrote most of our surviving texts. Historians have to piece together the story from scraps of evidence. Analysis of wills that mention gifts of linen cloths, entries in household accounts for old rags, and the study of medical texts that often describe menstruation in fearful mystical terms. Some scholars argue that many poorer women, especially in rural areas, might have done nothing at all, simply allowing the blood to flow freely, a practice known as free bleeding. In the close, confined, and commercially driven world of the brothel, that would be an impossibility. You must contain it, manage it, hide it. The church had its own complex and contradictory views. Menstruating women were often seen as unclean and barred from entering a church or receiving communion. Yet, the blood itself was also sometimes seen as having mystical properties. It's a confusing mess of theology and folklore that does little to help your practical, physical reality. You finish adjusting the clumsy padding and tuck the remaining rags back into your bag. The cramps are getting worse, so tight, painful knot in your lower back and belly. No herbs, no remedy for the pain. No herbs, no warm compresses. You are expected to work through it. A customer will not care about your monthly cycle. The abbess certainly won't. It is your problem, and yours alone. You think of Elodie wasting away upstairs. You think of the ever-present lice and fleas. You think of the sting of the vinegar. Your life is a catalogue of physical indignities, a constant war fought against your own body and the filth of your environment. This monthly bleeding is just another battle in that war, a battle you can never win, only endure. You take a slow, deep breath, trying to will the pain into a distant corner of your mind. You will have to go back downstairs and help with the cleaning. You will have to scrub the tables and empty the chamber pots, all while feeling the dull, insistent pain gnawing at you from the inside. As you stand up, another cramp seizes you, sharper this time. You lean against the rough wall, pressing your fist into your lower abdomen, waiting for the wave of pain to pass. In this small, hidden moment of solitary suffering, you feel a profound sense of isolation. Even among the other women, who all share this same monthly trial, there is a reluctance to speak of it openly. It is one more weakness to be hidden, one more vulnerability to be concealed in a life that preys on the weak. You are an island of pain and no one is coming to your shore. The wave passes. You straighten up and force your legs to move, one slow step at a time, back towards the stairs and the work that awaits. You make your way back down to the common room, your movements stiff from the cramping pain. The other women already at work. Marguerite is sweeping the floor with a crude broom made of bundled twigs, raising a small cloud of dust and grime. Isabelle is collecting the dirty putrid wooden cups, her face still puffy from her earlier tears. The air is thick with the smell of stale ale and snuffed-out tallow candles. Your job tonight is to empty the chamber pots. You gather the heavy earthenware pots from the corners of the room and from the upstairs workrooms. They are heavy and full. You hold them away from your body, your nose wrinkled in disgust, and carry them, one by one, out the back door. You dump their contents into the shallow ditch that serves as the house's sewer, a stinking, open trench that runs behind the row of buildings. The stench is overpowering. This is the height of urban sanitation in your world. A simple ditch. When it rains heavily, the ditch overflows, turning the yard into a foul-smelling swamp. In the summer, it buzzes with clouds of flies. It's a breeding ground for every imaginable disease, but it's the best you have. As you stand there for a moment, letting the cold night air clear your head, you hear it. The sound rolls across the rooftops of the sleeping town, deep and resonant. Dong, dong. It's the sound of the great bell in the tower of the cathedral, the one that dominates the town's skyline. It's ringing for matins, the midnight prayer service for the monks and clergy. For most of the townspeople tucked in their beds, it's just a familiar sound in the night, a way of marking the passage of time. For you, it is something else entirely. You stop what you're doing and just listen. The sound is so pure, so clean, so powerful. It seems to come from another world, a world of stone and incense and divine order. It's a world that is physically just a few hundred yards away, but spiritually, a million miles from where you stand. You were baptized in that church. You remember, as a small child, looking up at its vaulted stone ceilings, at the colored light streaming through the stained glass windows, feeling a sense of awed wonder. The church was the center of life, the place of baptisms, marriages, and funerals. It was a place of sanctuary and hope. But now, that world is closed to you. As a public sinner, you are not welcome there. You might be allowed to stand at the very back during a normal service, in the section reserved for penitents and outcasts, but you could not be married there. If you died in this life without formal repentance, you would likely be denied burial in the hallowed ground of the churchyard. You would be put in the unconsecrated earth outside the walls, with the unbaptized, the excommunicated, and the executed. The sound of the bells is a constant, recurring reminder of the salvation you are denied. It's a symbol of the community from which you have been ejected. Every toll of the bell is like a voice calling out unclean, unworthy. There is a huge, ongoing scholarly discussion about the true relationship between prostitutes and the medieval church. The official doctrine, preached from the pulpits, was one of condemnation. Prostitution was a mortal sin. Yet, at the same time, the church's attitude was complex. They drew a distinction between the sinner and the sin. Figures like Mary Magdalene, the prostitute who repented and became a follower of Christ, were held up as models of redemption. Some religious orders even established Magdalene houses, convents specifically for fallen women who wished to leave their former lives and dedicate themselves to penitence. But was this an act of compassion or another form of control? Inmates of these asylums were often subjected to incredibly harsh discipline, a life of hard labor and constant prayer, effectively trading one form of imprisonment for another. For you, the idea of a Magdalene house is a distant, almost mythical concept. To get there, you would have to escape the abyss and your debt, a nearly impossible feat. So you just stand in the stinking yard, listening to the bells. You feel a profound sense of spiritual homelessness. You are caught in a trap. The town needs you, or at least the men of the town do. The authorities tolerate and tax you. The church condemns you, but also, in theory, offers a path to redemption you can't possibly access. You exist in a state of perpetual limbo, necessary and yet reviled, visible and yet outcast. The final toll of the bell fades into the night, leaving a ringing silence in its wake. The moment of reflection is over. You are left alone with the chamber pots and the stench. The world of God has had its say, and now you must return to the world of men. You pick up the empty pots and head back inside. The cold, heavy ceramic feeling like a dead weight in your hands. The brief, beautiful sound from the cathedral has only served to make the filth you are returning to feel even more absolute. After the chamber pots are emptied and rinsed in the now disgusting water of the yard basin, you return inside to help finish cleaning the common room. You're on your hands and knees, wiping up a sticky patch of spilled ale from the floor with a damp rag when you see it. Lying half hidden under one of the benches is a single coin. You glance around. No one is looking. The abbess is in her office, her back to the room, tallying the night's meager earnings in her ledger. Marguerite is putting up the shutters. Isabel is scrubbing a pot in the corner. Your heart gives a little flutter. With a deft, practiced movement, you slide your rag over the coin and scoop it into your palm. It feels heavy and slightly greasy. You clench your fist around it, the metal cool against your skin. You don't look at it yet. You just keep wiping the floor. Your movements calm and methodical, betraying none of the frantic energy you feel inside. Finding a dropped coin is a rare and dangerous stroke of luck. It's theft, of course. Any money found in the house belongs to the house. If the abbess were to catch you, the punishment would be severe beating or days with no food. But the temptation is overwhelming. A single coin could mean, well, you're not even sure what it could mean. It's not enough to buy your freedom. It's not enough to escape. But it is something. It is yours. You finish your work, rise to your feet, and carry your dirty rag to the waste bucket. Your fist is still clenched at your side. You wait for a moment when no one is watching, then slip the coin into the small, hidden pocket you've sewn into the inside of your chemise. It rests against your skin, a small, cold, secret weight. Later, when the work is done and you are finally dismissed to the dormitory, you can examine it. The other women are settling onto their straw pallets, their exhausted sighs and rustles filling the darkness. You pretend to be adjusting your bedding, and in the faint moonlight filtering through the single grimy window, you pull the coin out. It's not a local coin. It doesn't have the familiar face of the king or the coat of arms of the local duke. The script around the edge is angular and strange, a language you don't recognize. The bust on the front is of a man with a beard and a strange hat. It's a foreign coin. You immediately know who it must have belonged to. The sailor. Earlier in the evening, there had been a group of them, their speech peppered with unfamiliar words, their faces turned by a sun you've never seen. One of them had chosen you. He had been loud and cheerful, and had paid with a handful of mixed currency. The abbess had grumbled as she sorted through it, picking out the pieces she recognized. This one must have been dropped in the confusion. Your town is a hub of trade. It's not a major port, but it's on a river, and merchants and travelers are constantly passing through, bringing with them not just goods like wine and wool, but also news stories and strange money. For most people, this is just the background hum of the economy. For you, it's a tangible link to a world beyond your comprehension. This coin in your palm could be from anywhere. From Genoa, with its great ships. From Flanders, where they weave the finest cloth. Maybe even further. From the sun-baked lands across the Great Sea where they grow spices. You hold it and try to imagine its journey. The hands it has passed through. The things it has bought. A bag of clothes in a bustling market. A length of silk. A passage on a ship. The existence of so many different currencies was a constant headache for medieval merchants, and a source of considerable debate for modern economic historians. There was no standardized international currency. A coin's value was based on the weight and purity of its metal, gold or silver. A savvy merchant had to be a skilled metallurgist, able to judge the value of a dozen different types of florins, ducats, and groats. Money changers were essential figures in any town, sitting at their benches or banks, from which we get the word bank, weighing and assessing coins. The abbess is a small-scale version of this. Her ledger a testament to the complex flow of money through even the lower rungs of society. This coin is probably worthless to you here. No local shopkeeper would accept it. The abbess might know its value, but you could never ask her. To her, it is just a piece of foreign metal. But to you, in the dark of the dormitory, it is a talisman. It's a piece of the outside world. Secrets are a form of power, however small. The abbess has her ledger and her lockbox. Master Elias has his book of poetry. You have this small, strange coin. It's a weight in your pocket that is yours and yours alone. It cannot buy you a better meal or a warmer bed, but it can buy you a moment of imagination. It can buy you a dream of a place where the sun is warmer and the sea is a color you can't even imagine. You close your hand around it again, the sharp edges of the foreign script pressing into your palm. You will keep it hidden. It is your one tiny, useless, and incredibly precious treasure. It's a reminder that the world is larger than this room, larger than this town, larger than this town, larger than this life. And for tonight, that is enough. Just as a weary silence finally begins to settle over the dormitory, a new sound cuts through the darkness. It's not a call for a whisper. It's the thin, sharp, fretful cry of a baby. The sound comes from the far corner of the room, from the straw pallet where Marie sleeps, or where she tries to sleep. You hear her stir, a tired groan, followed by a soft choosing sound. Hush now, little one, hush. Marie has a child, a little boy named Thomas, not more than 6 months old. He was born here in this room. His father could have been any one of 100 men who passed through these doors last year. The baby's cry persists, a raw, insistent wail that scrapes at the nerves of every tired woman in the room. You hear someone mutter, "For God's sake, make it stop." Mary's life is an amplified version of your own misery. She endures all the same hardships, the filth, the hunger, the work, the pain, but she does so with a small, helpless life depending entirely on her. She has to work her shifts downstairs just like everyone else, leaving the baby swaddled and tucked away in the corner of the room, praying he doesn't wake and cry while she's with a client. If the abbess hears the baby disturbing the customers, Marie faces her wrath. The fate of children born in brothels is one of the most heartbreaking, undebated aspects of this life. What happened to them? The historical record is fragmented and grim. Infant mortality was staggeringly high for everyone in the Middle Ages, but for a child born into these conditions with poor sanitation, no access to clean water, and a malnourished mother, the odds of surviving the first year were terrifyingly low. If a child did survive, the future was bleak. Some were given up to orphanages or foundling hospitals run by the church, institutions that were overwhelmed, underfunded, and had mortality rates of their own that could be as high as 80 or 90%. Others were simply abandoned on the steps of a church or a monastery, a desperate act of hope. A few, a very few, might be claimed by a father if he could be identified and persuaded. But many, like little Thomas, simply stayed. A boy might grow up to be a servant or a pimp for the house. A girl's path was even more grimly predetermined. She would likely be raised into the trade, her childhood a long, slow apprenticeship for the life her mother already led. Some brothel keepers saw this as a sound business investment, raising your own future workforce. The cycle of exploitation would become hereditary. You lie on your straw pallet, listening to the baby's cries and Mary's desperate, gentle murmurs. The sound fills you with a complex and uncomfortable mix of emotions. There is pity for Marie, and for the child, born into a world with no hope. There is annoyance because the crying keeps you from the precious, fleeting oblivion of sleep. And there is a deep, cold fear. The fear of becoming Marie. Pregnancy was the ultimate professional hazard, a constant terror looming over every single encounter. The methods of contraception available were rudimentary and unreliable, based more on folklore and superstition than on any real medical knowledge. Women would use pessaries made of things like honey, rock salt, or even crocodile dung, based on ancient Egyptian and Greek medical texts. They would drink herbal concoctions made from plants like penurial or tansy, which were known to be abortifacient but were also highly toxic and could easily kill the woman as well as the fetus. The effectiveness of any of these methods is a major point of contention for historians. Some argue they were almost completely useless, while others believe that women possessed a body of folk knowledge that had at least some marginal effect. But the simple truth was pregnancies happened, and when they did, a woman faced a series of terrible choices. She could attempt a dangerous, illegal abortion. She could try to hide the pregnancy for as long as possible and then abandon the baby. Or she could do what Marie did, have the child and try to raise it within the walls of the brothel. The baby's crying softens a little, turning into a series of hiccuping sobs. Marie is probably nursing him, her own meager diet producing thin, watery milk that barely satisfies his hunger. You imagine her in the darkness, her painted face from the evening now smeared in tears streaked, holding her child, whispering promises to him that she knows she can't keep. It is perhaps the ultimate cruelty of this life. It takes the most fundamental human experiences, intimacy, motherhood, birth, and twists them into sources of pain, shame, and fear. A baby's cry, a sound that should symbolize hope and new life, becomes a nuisance, a liability, a reminder of the trap you are all in. You pull your thin blanket over your head, trying to muffle the sound. You don't want to hear it. You don't want to think about what it means. You just want to sleep. You press the cold, foreign coin in your pocket, a hard, unfeeling piece of metal. It feels a world away from the warm, fragile, crying life in the corner of the room. You focus on the coldness of the coin, trying to make your own heart just as cold, just as hard. It's the only way to survive the night. The baby's cries finally subside into soft, snuff-like breaths, and a fragile quiet returns to the dormitory. Sleep, however, remains elusive. Just as your mind begins to drift, a sudden crash from downstairs shatters the peace. It's followed by a man's furious roar and the sound of splintering wood. Every woman in the room is instantly awake, sitting bolt upright on her straw pallet. Your heart leaps into your throat. This is not the sound of business. This is the sound of violence. You hear the abbess's voice, sharp and commanding out. "Get out of my house." Another man shouts, his words thick and slurred with drink. He cheated. The whores uncheated me at dice. I want no gambling in my house, and no fighting. Take it to the street. There's the sound of a scuffle, a heavy thud as a body hits the floor, and then the unmistakable sound of a clay cup or a jug shattering against a wall. You and the other women exchange fearful glances in the dark. A fight. It's one of the most dangerous things that can happen. A simple dispute between two drunken customers can escalate in seconds, and you are the ones who are most vulnerable, caught in the crossfire. The brothel, by its very nature, attracted men who were prone to violence. Soldiers, sailors, and transient laborers with a few coins to spend and a lot of aggression to burn off. Alcohol fueled the flames. While the abbess tried to maintain a semblance of order, fighting is bad for business. It breaks the furniture and scares off the wealthier clients. Her control was always tenuous. You can hear her shouting again, and then the sound of the heavy front door being thrown open. There are more yells, a final, desperate curse, and then the sounds of the fight spill out into the street. The door slams shut, and a heavy, ringing silence falls over the house. The immediate danger has passed, but the adrenaline still courses through your veins. Your hands are shaking. You wait, listening. After a few moments, you hear the abbess moving around downstairs. The soft crunch of her footsteps on broken pottery. A low, furious curse muffled under her breath. She is assessing the damage. This kind of routine violence is a part of the historical landscape that is often downplayed in favor of battles and courtly intrigue. But for the vast majority of people, violence was not a matter of knights and armies. It was a sudden, brutal tavern brawl, a dispute over a debt that ended with a knife, a domestic argument that turned physical. The justice system was slow and often ineffective. In a place like a brothel, which existed on the margins of the law, you were almost entirely on your own. You think of the guards, the so-called protectors who had been here earlier. They would be of no use now. They only intervened when it suited them, when there was a profit to be made. They wouldn't come running to break up a simple drunken brawl. That was Mafald's problem. There's a debate among historians about the level of violence in medieval society. Some argue, based on homicide rates calculated from coroner's reports, that it was a vastly more violent and dangerous world than our own. Others caution that these records are incomplete and can be misleading, that life was not a constant, brutal free-for-all. But sitting here in the dark, with your heart pounding from the sounds of a fight just one floor below, the academic debate feels academic. Your world is violent. Danger is not a statistical probability, it is a constant, lurking presence. You hear the abbess's heavy footsteps on the stairs. The dormitory door creaks open. Her silhouette stands in the doorway, a figure of pure, cold fury. Two of you, she snaps into the darkness, downstairs. Now, clean up this pigsty. She doesn't pick anyone by name. She doesn't need to. Two dark shapes detach themselves from their pallets, Marguerite and another woman named Jean, both older and accustomed to this routine, and follow the abbess downstairs without a word. You are left in the relative safety of the dormitory, but you can't relax. You listen to the sounds from below. The scraping of a bench being righted, the sweep of a broom on the floor, the soft clink of larger pottery shards being collected. Every broken cup, every splintered chair, is a loss that the abbess will feel in her ledger. And when the abbess feels a loss, she has a way of making sure everyone else feels it too. The cost of the damage will be absorbed, one way or another. It will mean a smaller portion of bread tomorrow. It will mean a fine for some imaginary infraction. It will be taken out of your collective hides, bit by bit. The violence of the customers, the greed of the gods, the anger of the abbess, it all flows downhill, and you are at the bottom of the hill. You are the final receptacle for all the rage and frustration of the world outside. You lie back down on the straw, but sleep is now impossible. Your body is humming with a nervous energy that will not dissipate. The night has been a catalogue of disruptions. The arrival of the guards, the sickness of Elodie, the heartbreaking cries of the baby, and now this. Each event has chipped away at the fragile shell of numbness you try to build around yourself. You feel raw, exposed, every nerve ending frayed. The dream of a green field you sometimes have feels further away than ever. You know, your dreams will be of shouting and broken things. An hour crawls by. The sounds of cleaning from downstairs finally cease. Marguerite and Jean return to the dormitory, their movements heavy with exhaustion, and collapse onto their straw pallets without a word. The house is now really quiet. The only sounds are the soft breathing of the sleeping women, the distant, lonely bark of a dog, and the faint rustle of the straw as you shift your weight. This is the deepest, darkest part of the night. The part just before the first hint of dawn, when the world seems to hold its breath. For you, this quiet is a double-edged sword. It's a relief from the noise and demands of the evening, but it's also when the weight of your life feels the most suffocating. There are no more distractions, no customers to focus on, no chores to perform. There is only you, the darkness, and your thoughts. You strain your ears, listening for a sound from the street. The last customer of the night, the one who wasn't involved in the fight, had stumbled out of the house just before the brawl erupted. His departure marked the official, if chaotic, end of the workday. You try to conjure his face, but it's already gone, dissolved into the blur of all the other faces. He was just a shape in the dark, a source of a few coins for the abbess's lockbox. You wonder briefly what his life is like. Does he have a wife at home, sleeping in a warm bed? Does he have children? Does he wake up in the morning and go to a job that doesn't slowly grind his soul into dust? It's a dangerous game, imagining the lives of your clients. It makes them human. And it's easier if they remain objects, transactions. But in the deep quiet of the night, it's hard to stop your mind from wandering down these paths. You wonder if any of them ever think of you after they leave. Do they remember your face? Your name, the false one you gave them? Or do you disappear from their minds the moment the brothel door closes behind them? A brief, shameful need that has been met and is now best forgotten. You suspect it's the latter. You are a secret they keep from themselves. The very concept of a last customer is something social historians find fascinating. The rhythm of the brothel, the slow start, the evening rush, the tapering off into the night reflects the social rhythms of the town itself. The men came after their own work was done, after the family meal was over, under the cover of darkness. Your workday began as theirs ended. You are the shadow side of their world, the dark reflection of their respectable, daytime life. You think about the money, the coins that passed from their hands to yours, and then immediately into the abbess. You are the conduit, the vessel through which the money flows, but none of it sticks to you. It's a bitter, frustrating irony. You are the source of the house's wealth, but you remain trapped in poverty. A strange, almost comical piece of medieval lore comes to mind. It was a common belief, recorded in some texts, that a coin that had been in a prostitute's purse was somehow unlucky or tainted, and that it should be given away to the poor as an act of charity to cleanse it. The hypocrisy is staggering. The money was good enough to spend on the sin, but too dirty to keep afterwards. It perfectly encapsulates the contradictory attitude society has towards you. Your body is a commodity to be bought, but the transaction renders the payment itself unclean. The silence deepens. This is the moment when the profound loneliness of your existence settles in. During the day, you are surrounded by the other sisters of sorrow. The shared glances, the whispered gossip, the collective endurance, it creates a thin, fragile sense of community. But now, in the absolute dark, each woman is an island, adrift in her own sea of memories and fears. You can hear Marguerite's soft snore, Isabel's occasional sniffle, the rustle of Marie turning in her sleep next to her baby. You are all so close, packed together in this room, yet you feel a million miles apart. The last customer is gone. The door is bolted. The work is done. There should be a moment of relief, of release. But it isn't. Because you know with a bone-deep certainty that tomorrow will be the same. The sun will rise, the itch will start, the murky water will be waiting in the basin. The cycle will begin again. The departure of the last customer doesn't signal an end. It just signals a pause. A brief, terrifyingly empty pause in a life sentence. You reach into your chemise and touch the secret for a coin. It's cold and hard against your skin. It's a tiny, solid fact in a world of exhaustion and fear. You hold on to it, a drowning person clutching a piece of driftwood. It's not a raft. It won't save you. But for now, it's the only thing in this entire, endless night that is truly yours. The house is settled into a fitful, exhausted sleep, but your night is not quite over. A soft scraping sound comes from the dormitory door. It's not the abbess. It's Jean, one of the older women, sent as a messenger. She whispers your name into the darkness. Omelini, the abbess wants to see you. A cold red, sharp and immediate, washes over you. A summons at this hour after the house is closed can only mean one thing. The reckoning. You slide off your straw pallet, your bare feet finding the cold, rough floorboards. You follow Jean's shadowy form out of the dormitory and down the stairs. The common room is dark, save for a single, flickering candle on the abbess's table. The mess from the fight has been cleared away, but the room still smells of stale fear. The abbess is sitting at her table, her back ramrod straight. In front of her is the object you dread most in this house, her ledger. It's a large leather-bound book, its pages filled with her sharp, spiky handwriting. Next to it is a small wooden bowl containing the night's earnings. She doesn't look at you as you approach. She just gestures to the spot on the floor in front of her table. You sink to your knees, your eyes fixed on the flickering candle flame. This is a position of supplication, of submission. "They bad night," she says, her voice flat and cold. "Thanks to drunkards and cowards." She nudges the bowl of coins with her finger. It's a pathetic little pile. Not even enough to cover the cost of the ale they drank in the jug they broke. You remain silent. You know better than to speak unless spoken to. She opens the ledger. The book is the true source of her power. It's not just an accounting of income and expenses. It is the story of your enslavement. When you first came to this house sold by your family, or having run away from something worse, you arrived with nothing. The abbess provided you with a place to sleep, food to eat, and clothes to wear. Every one of these things was alone. The cost of your straw mattress, your bread, your dress, even the makeup you put on your face, was all recorded as a debt next to your name. Each night your earnings are tallied. A portion, usually half, sometimes more, is taken by the abbess as the house fee. The small amount that remains is then put against your debt, but the debt is designed to be inescapable. She adds fines for any infraction. A spilled drink, a torn dress, being too slow, being too sullen. The interest on your loan grows every week. The numbers in the book, are a form of alchemy, turning your labor and your body into a self-perpetuating chain. This system, known as debt bondage, was instilled as a common mechanism of exploitation. Whether this was a formal, legally recognized system in medieval brothels or an informal, coercive practice is a subject of much academic debate. Some legal records suggest prostitutes were seen as independent contractors renting a room from the brothel keeper. But the reality on the ground, for women with no resources or legal power, was likely much closer to the grim arithmetic in Mathold's ledger. You are not an employee, you are collateral. Omalini, she says, her finger running down a page. She has a separate page for each woman. She finds yours. You had 3 clients tonight. Yes, Abus. The weaver, the apprentice, and Master Elias. She looks up from the book, her eyes pinning you. Master Elias is a creature of habit. He pays his 2 pence for his time, and not a penny more. The apprentice likely had nothing but lint in his pockets. Only the weaver paid a respectable price. She counts out a few small coins from the bowl. Your share after the house fee. She pushes a tiny pile of copper and tarnished silver towards you. It's barely enough to buy a loaf of bread. Then she dips her quill pen into the ink pot. From this we deduct she pauses, enjoying the moment, 1 farthing for the needle and thread you used, another farthing for the extra candle you burned with Master Elias. She makes 2 small, sharp marks in the book, and a halfpenny for being slow to clear the tables after the guard left. Another mark. She looks at the few coins remaining in your share. It seems you earned almost nothing tonight, Omelini. In fact, your debt has grown. She writes a new number at the bottom of the column, a number that is larger than the one from the day before. You stare at the meaningless scribbles in the book. You can read them, but you understand them perfectly. You have worked all night. You have endured the groping, the pain, the fear, and for all of it, you are poorer than when you started. You have moved 1 step forward and been pushed 2 steps back. You will have to work harder tomorrow, she says, her voice devoid of emotion. It's not a suggestion, it's an order. She closes the ledger with a soft thud that sounds like a solder slamming shut. She scoops the coins from the table, all of them, and drops them into her lockbox. The transaction is complete. You are dismissed with a wave of her hand. You push yourself to your feet, your knees aching from the hard floor. You turn and walk away, your head bowed. You feel hollowed out, empty. The brief, triumphant feeling you had from finding the foreign coin now feels like a sick joke. That single, secret coin in your pocket is more than you officially earned in the entire night. As you climb the stairs back to the dormitory, you understand with a chilling clarity that you are not working to pay off your debt. You are working to service it. The debt is the point. It is the cage, and the abbess holds the only key. You return to the dormitory, the ghosts of the abbessess cold accounting clinging to you like a shroud. The other women are breathing the shallow, troubled breath of exhausted sleep. You envy them. Your mind is wide awake, buzzing with the injustice of the ledger and the gnawing reality of your ever-deepening debt. But before you can surrender to this draw, there is one final, brutal task to perform, the last cleansing of the night. You creep over to the corner where the bucket of vinegar sits, a silent, pungent sentinel in the darkness. The small workrooms upstairs each have their own, but there is also this communal one in the dormitory for a final rinse before sleep, a last-ditch attempt to ward off the maladies of the night. You dip a fresh rag, or rather a less used, slightly less disgusting rag, into the bucket. The sharp acidic smell bites at your nostrils, a scent you now associate with pain and duty. You find a relatively private corner, turning your back to the room, and perform the ritual one last time. The sting is breathtaking. Your skin, already sensitized and chafed from the earlier cleansiness of the night, screams in protest. It's a white-hot, liquid fire. You clench your jaw, squeezing your eyes shut so tightly you see spots of light against the blackness. A small, involuntary gasp escapes your lips. You pray no one heard it. To show pain is to show weakness. This final ablution feels like the most punishing of all. It's not just a physical act. It's a psychological one. It's a final, violent scouring away of the day's work. It's as if you are trying to burn away the memory of the men, the touch of their hands, the weight of their bodies. You are trying to erase them from your skin, but the only tool you have is one that inflicts a fresh layer of trauma. You are caught in a perfect, hellish paradox. The very act meant to purify you is what causes the most immediate and undeniable harm. It's a penance and a preventative measure all in one, a self-flagellation prescribed by the house rule. The history of medicine is filled with such brutal ironies. For centuries, medical treatments were often based on the idea of humoral balance, or purging the body of bad influences. Doctors would bleed patients to cure them of fevers, weakening them when they most needed their strength. They would prescribe potions containing mercury or arsenic, powerful poisons in the belief they were fighting disease. There was a pervasive belief that a harsh remedy was an effective one. It wasn't working. This vinegar rinse is a small, domestic echo of that same brutal medical philosophy. The pain is proof that it is doing something. What, exactly, it is doing is a matter of some debate for modern scholars. Did these acidic rinses have any actual contraceptive or antiseptic effect? Some historians argue that they might have had a marginal effect, creating a hostile environment for sperm or some bacteria. Others contend that they were almost entirely useless for preventing pregnancy or disease and that their primary effect was causing chronic inflammation, tissue damage, and increasing the user's susceptibility to infections. In essence, they may have made things much, much worse. You don't need a scholar to tell you that. You can feel it in your own burning skin. The sharp initial agony slowly subsides, leaving behind a deep, throbbing ache. It's a familiar pain, an unwelcome but constant companion. You will feel it as you try to fall asleep. You will feel it when you wake up in the morning. It is the physical residue of your labor. You pull your thin chemise back down, the rough fabric and irritant against your raw skin. You feel utterly and completely depleted. Every last drop of your physical and emotional energy has been wrung out of you by the long, cruel day and night. The initial itch of the lice, the cold shock of the morning water, the heavy poison of the makeup, the endless waiting, the fear of the guards, the sorrow for Elodie, the terror of the fight, the humiliation of the ledger, and now this, the final, searing pain. It all culminates in this moment of absolute exhaustion. You stumble towards your straw pallet, your own small island in this sea of shared misery. You don't so much lie down as you collapse onto it, the scratchy straw a welcome relief simply because it means you can stop holding your own body upright. You curl into a tight ball, pulling the thin, musty blanket up to your chin. You are a bundle of aches and pains, held together by the sheer, stubborn fact of your own heartbeat. The cleansing is done. The day is over. There is nothing left to do but try to find a few hours of black, dreamless oblivion before the sun rises, and you have to do it all over again. You lie curled on your pallet, every muscle aching, every nerve ending frayed. The throbbing pain from the vinegar rinse is a dull, constant drumbeat against the silence of the room. Sleep should be a welcome refuge, but your mind is a churning sea of the night's events. The sound of the fight, the image of Elodie's blood-flecked hand, the coldness in the abbess's eyes that she wrote in her ledger, it all plays on a loop behind your closed eyelids. And then, through the darkness, you hear it. It's a soft sound, almost imperceptible at first. A choked, wet sniffle. You hold your breath listening. It comes again, a desperate attempt to cry without making a sound. It's the sound of someone trying to swallow their own sobs. You know immediately who it is. Isabel, the new girl. She is on her pallet across the room, a huddled shape in the gloom. The sounds are so quiet, so full of a desperate attempt at privacy, that they are more heartbreaking than a full-throated wail would be. She is trying to break down without anyone noticing, in a room where every sound is public property. You lie perfectly still, pretending to be asleep. A part of you, the exhausted, self-protective part, wants to ignore it. You have your own pain to deal with. You don't have the strength to take on anyone else's. Each woman in this house must learn to build her own walls, to tend to her own wounds. Compassion is a luxury, a resource you can't afford to spend, but the sound continues, a rhythm of quiet, desperate grief in the dark. It gets under your skin. It reminds you of your own first weeks here. The nights you spent biting down on your own blanket to keep from screaming, the feeling of being so utterly alone and terrified, that you thought your heart would simply stop beating. You think of the guard Jock, and the way he had looked at her. You think of how she had stumbled back down the stairs, pale and trembling. You don't know what happened in that room. You don't want to know, but you can guess. The thin wooden walls of the brothel are no barrier to sound. Privacy is a concept that doesn't exist here. This is a fact that both torments you and, in a strange way, connects you. You hear everything. The arguments, the transactions, the weeping. It's a constant, invasive soundtrack to your life. Architectural historians who study medieval buildings often note how different the concept of privacy was. Rooms were multi-purpose, doors were few, and people lived their lives in much closer and louder proximity to one another. In a grand house, a lord and lady might have a private chamber, but for everyone else, life was a communal affair. Here in this house, the lack of privacy is amplified. The walls have ears, and they belong to the other women who share your fate. Isabella's muffled sobs are a testament to this. She is crying for herself, but her sorrow bleeds through the walls, through the darkness, and becomes a part of the room's collective misery. Her pain is a reminder of your own, a reflection of the terror you all live with. A war rages inside you. The instinct to survive tells you to shut it out, to harden your heart, to save your energy for your own battles tomorrow. But another instinct, an older and more deeply human one, pushes back. The memory of your own lonely tears. The shared glance with Marguerite earlier in the night. The small, fragile threads of connection that are the only things that make this life even remotely bearable. What could you even do? You can't make it better. You can't offer her any real hope. Any words of comfort would sound hollow and false. It will be all right. You will get used to it. These are lies. It will not be all right. And you never truly get used to it. You just learn to bear it. So you do nothing. You just lie there, a silent witness to her private grief made public. You listen to her cry until the sobs become less frequent, until they are replaced by the slow, shuddering breaths of someone who has cried themselves into a state of pure, empty exhaustion. The silence that follows is heavier, more profound than before. It is a silence filled with unspoken pain, a quiet testament to the suffering contained within the four walls of this room. You feel a deep, aching connection to the girl across the room, a kinship of shared trauma. You are not her friend. You are not her mother. You are simply a fellow prisoner, listening to the sounds of another prisoner's torment in the adjoining cell. And in this terrible, shared darkness, that is the only kind of sisterhood there is. You close your eyes, her fading sobs, the last lullaby of a long and brutal night. The house is finally truly still. Even Isabel's quiet weeping has faded into the exhausted silence of the dormitory. You lie on your back, staring up into the oppressive darkness, feeling the familiar, gritty texture of the straw sack through your thin chemise. Sleep is a distant country you cannot seem to reach. Your mind is a kicked hunthill, thoughts scattering in every direction. Then you feel a gentle touch on your arm. You flinch, your body tensing instantly, a conditioned reflex from a life where unexpected touch usually means trouble. Sure, it's me. The whisper is so close, so soft, you almost feel it rather than hear it. It's Marguerite. In the faint moonlight, you can just make out her form, the dark shape that has crept silently from her palate to yours. In one hand, she's holding a small wooden cup. The smell that wafts from it is rich and sweet, a scent so out of place in this room of misery that it takes your brain a moment to identify it. It's wine, not the watered-down, sour ale from the common room. This is the good stuff, the dark, sweet, potent wine that the abbess keeps under lock and key for her wealthiest customers. She was so busy with the ledger, she forgot to lock the pantry, Marguerite whispers, her voice a thread of triumphant conspiracy in the dark. I took a cupful. Your eyes widen. This is an act of incredible audacity, of breathtaking rebellion. To steal food is one thing. To steal the abbess's prized wine is a crime of the highest order. If caught, the punishment would be swift and brutal. Marguerite holds the cup out to you. Here, she breathes. Drink. You hesitate. The fear of the abyss is a physical thing, a cold knot in your gut. But the offer, the sheer, reckless generosity of it, is overwhelming. Marguerite could have kept this for herself. She could have drunk it all, a secret moment of pleasure, but she chose to share it with you. You sit up slowly, your body protesting, and take the cup. Your hand trembles as you bring it to your lips. The wine is cool and silky, a burst of sweet, fermented fruit on your tongue. It's so different from the thin, sour ale that it feels like a different substance entirely. It's a taste of another world, a world of warmth and wealth and pleasure. You take a small sip, savoring it, letting the warmth spread from your mouth down into your chest. It feels like drinking liquid curry. You pass the cup back to Marguerite. She takes a sip, her eyes closing for a moment in quiet bliss. This small, silent act in the dead of night is more than just a stolen drink. It's a declaration. It's a declaration. It's a tiny spark of defiance against the crushing weight of the house, the debt, the despair. The abbess can control your body, your time, your earnings. But in this moment, you have stolen something back. A taste of luxury. A moment of shared pleasure. A secret. The history of theft and petty crime among the poor is often a history of survival and resistance. When the system is designed to keep you destitute, stealing a loaf of bread or a cup of wine isn't just a crime. It can be an act of rebellion, a way of asserting your own needs in a world that denies them. It's what the historian James C. Scott would call a weapon of the weak, small, everyday acts of non-compliance and pilfering that, while not overthrowing the system, make life within it more bearable. Academics can debate the morality and economic impact of such acts. But for you and Marguerite, it is simply a moment of grace. She passes the cup back to you. You take another sip, a slightly larger one this time. The warmth is spreading through your limbs, loosening the tight knots of anxiety and pain. The throbbing in your skin from the vinegar rinse seems to fade into the background. She gestures with her head towards Isabella's sleeping form. "We should leave some for the little one," she whispers. "She will need it in the morning." You nod, a lump forming in your throat. This is the sisterhood you had thought impossible just a few hours ago. It's not loud or grand. It's quiet and secretive. It's a silent agreement to look out for the newest, most vulnerable member of your flock. It's a small, flickering candle of humanity in a vast and overwhelming darkness. Marguerite takes one last sip and then carefully places the cup on the floor between your palates, tucking it under a fold of her blanket where it will be safe until morning. She gives your arm a gentle, firm squeeze, a gesture of solidarity that says everything that words cannot. Then, as silently as she came, she creeps back to her own straw bed. You lie back down, the sweet, lingering taste of the wine on your tongue. The world has not changed. The abbess is still in her room. Your debt is still in her book. The sun will still rise on another day of misery, but something inside you has shifted. The profound, isolating loneliness has been broken. You are not an island. You are part of a secret, whispered conspiracy of survival. For the first time all night, you feel the tense coils of your body begin to relax. The warmth of the wine spreads through you like a gentle tide, carrying the fear and the pain out with it. Sleep, which had been a distant shore, now feels close, inviting. As your eyelids finally grow heavy, your last waking thought is not of fear or pain, but of the taste of stolen wine and the unexpected, fierce, and quiet kindness of a sister in the dark. The stolen wine works its magic, a warm, heavy blanket that finally smothers the frantic, buzzing thoughts in your mind. The aches of your body, the sting of your skin, the cold knot of fear in your stomach, they all seem to recede, to soften, to lose their sharp edges. The darkness behind your eyelids is no longer a canvas for ugly memories, but a soft, welcoming void. Your breathing deepens, slowing into the steady, even rhythm of sleep. The hard, lumpy straw beneath you seems to transform, becoming softer, more yielding. The scratchy wool blanket feels almost like a comforting embrace. The sounds of the dormitory, the snores, the rustles, the distant cry of the baby fade into a gentle, meaningless hum, the background music to your descent. You are drifting now, untethered from the cold, hard floor of the brothel. Your mind, finally released from its waking prison, begins to wander. It doesn't wander back to the fight, or the ledger, 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 or the pain. It wanders somewhere else entirely. You are standing in a field. The grass is so green it hurts your eyes, a vibrant, impossible color you haven't seen in years. It's cool and soft beneath your bare feet. You curl your toes, feeling the damp earth, the tickle of the blades of grass. There is no straw, no filth, no cold floorboards. Just this endless, living green. You look up. The sky is a vast, brilliant blue, dotted with a few lazy, white clouds. The sun is warm on your face, a gentle, benevolent heat, not the harsh, oppressive sun of a dusty town street. You can feel a light breeze on your skin, carrying the sweet, clean scent of wildflowers and damp earth. It's a smell so pure it makes your lungs ache with pleasure. There are no walls here. No doors, no locks, no bolts. The world stretches out in every direction, a rolling landscape of green fields and distant, hazy blue hills. You can walk anywhere you want, you could run. You start to walk, your steps light and easy. Your body doesn't take. There is no pain, no stiffness in your joints. You are wearing a simple, clean chemise, and it feels soft against your skin. There is no yellow sash of shame tied around your waist. There is no heavy, poisonous paint on your face. You run your hand over your cheek, and the skin is just skin. In the distance, you can hear the sound of a stream, a gentle, gurgling music. You walk towards it. The sound gets louder, clearer. You see the water, sparkling in the sunlight as it tumbles over smooth, grey stones. You kneel at the bank and cup your hands, plunging them into the cool, clear water. It's so clean you can see the pebbles on the bottom. You bring the water to your face, and it is a shock of pure, clean coolness. It doesn't sting. It doesn't burn. It just washes away the dust, the grime, the memory of everything that is not this place. You drink it, and it tastes of nothing but life. You lie back in the soft grass, your head pillowed on a patch of sweet-smelling clover. You close your eyes, and the only sounds are the gentle murmur of the stream and the buzz of a bumblebee somewhere nearby. There are no shouts, no weeping, no creaking floorboards, only this deep, profound, and living peace. This dream, or some version of it, is your most secret treasure, more precious even than the foreign coin. It is the one place you can go where they cannot follow. The abbess has no ledger here, the guards have no power. The customers have no faces. It is a sanctuary you have built for yourself, plank by plank, out of longing on memory and imagination. Whether this is a memory of a childhood you once had, before you came to the town, or a pure fantasy woven from stories and desires, is a question that even you can't answer. The line between memory and dream has blurred into insignificance. All that matters is that this place exists. It exists here, now, in the quietest corner of your sleeping mind. It's a fragile refuge. You know that it cannot last. You know that soon, the first grey light of dawn will seep through the cracks of the dormitory window. You know that the itch will return to your scalp. You know that the whole brutal cycle will begin again. But for now you are here. In this moment, you are not Omelini, the painted woman of the Belt Avon brothel. You are just a girl, lying in a green field, with the sun on her face and the sound of clean water in her ears. For now you are free, and in the deep, dream-filled quiet, you allow yourself to believe, just for a little while, that this is the only reality that matters. And so, the dream holds you a gentle embrace in the heart of a harsh world. The green of the field becomes the soft darkness of your room, the warmth of the sun becomes the weight of your own comfortable blanket. The sounds of the stream fade, leaving behind only the deep, peaceful quiet of the night. You can feel yourself sinking now, deeper and deeper into that restorative place, that place of absolute stillness where there are no stories, no thoughts, only the simple, gentle rhythm of your own slow breathing. You are safe here. You are at rest. The day is done, its struggles have dissolved into the vast silence of sleep, and there is nothing left to do, nothing at all, but to drift on this quiet, easy current, further and further into the peace you so richly deserve. Our journey together tonight ends here, in this quiet place. Should you need another tale to accompany you further into rest, my library of stories is always open for you. May your dreams be kind. Good night.